those are just extended runs, basically. This guy at the controls, and he's going to throw a wide open Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson heading to the end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. 48 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
They hand it to him. Touchdown! Georgia SEC champions! As every dog digs really deep.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
56-yarder, the win really not a factor. Snap and hold are good. That one is good! At the buzzer! Clemson wins the ACC.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Udo on 2nd and 5, first down and more. Udo might be gone. Race is on. Past the 40-yard line. Inside the 30. Inside the 10. And tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
There's Mr. Contact Balance again. Look at Scattaboo go. Tripped up just inside the 20. What an unbelievable first half by Scattaboo.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you've had a good day and hope you have a great rest of the day. And college football, before you know it, in just a couple of weekends, that college football playoff will begin. And so much that's churning, constantly churning from what is coaching carousel information, staff changes, additions, subtractions, the transfer portal. And yes, there are games to be played to decide a national championship or to be a part of a bowl game, depending on who has that opportunity. I'm David Smoak with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak as well. And let's start with this. E. Gordon Gee from West Virginia, their president, with a couple of nuggets today. I think we would be well received by a large set of our population. He left in a very unruly manner, talking about, of course, Rich Rodriguez. If he were here, if he were to come back, it would have to be as a prodigal son. Can he come back? I don't know. I've come back twice.
Yes, he has, and he's not without controversy, but he's not. He's a bit of a rarity to me in the college president world, in that he's very willing to speak his mind, as opposed to putting things in a little bit of a box and then doing that. I think hiring Rich Rodriguez would be a bad idea. I mean, and I reserve the right to be proven wrong on that. If for West Virginia's sake, and especially all their fans that watch our show every day and have supported us, I hope whoever you hire works out great for you. But I think I like new ideas better than old, more or less. I think that going back to Rich Rodriguez because it worked 20 years ago is a mistake. I think you need to go back to a coach who's innovative and can win in the Big 12 now.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting to hear him speak on it. And as he said, he's come back and returned, and others have as well. And so it's not unprecedented, and it could very well be successful. There's obviously a chunk of West Virginia fans, including some former players, who feel like Rich Rod's the guy that knows the DNA and knows how to push all the right buttons and get the fans going and just get that machine operating at its highest level. And now, granted, that machine, when you saw it, was like the 2007, the 2000s version of the machine. There's been a couple decades that have happened since then. So to think that it's just going to carry over and it's simply a matter of having his butt in that seat and everything's going to turn into, the old days of West Virginia, early 2000s football, it's a totally different game. I mean, it's a totally different game since then. So that's not a guarantee, but I do, like we've said the last couple days, understand that there is a uniqueness to West Virginia, that he is somebody who has understood it where others haven't and probably still understands it better than some others would. So I get the appeal and the attraction and the desire to rekindle some of that old magic. But I'm like Paul, I'm against it if I had a say. But I also say very clearly, I'm not a West Virginia person. So my opinion doesn't really matter. And I also feel like it's one of those things where I definitely wouldn't go that route. But I know it's different for those people that are inside those walls, right? Like those people that cheered Rich Rod on and cheered West Virginia on. It's different for them than me, just neutral observer on the outside looking in going, yeah, I don't think you want to get back with your ex. I don't think that's a good idea 20 years later, the whole J-Lo Ben Affleck thing, because that's what this sort of feels like. But then again, you look at UCF and they're doing the same thing, albeit a much shorter gap in between, and their fans seem to be fired up, and I know there would be a segment of West Virginia fans fired up. So the point being right now is they still haven't hired a head football coach. I know we're going to get to where they also may be looking. But, yeah, the Rich Rodriguez fire still burning, and interesting to hear E. Gordon Gee just talk about it and acknowledge it.
One of the other things he said, you get somebody every once in a while to go, why is there so much interest in this? Of course, the television numbers are better than ever before, but really across the board and with most sports, they're better. The importance of athletics. I can't get 65,000 people to a chemistry lecture, but I can get 65,000 to a football game. That's from Brett McMurphy, who posted that on a quote from E. Gordon Gee, and he's right. Well, and you hear about it's the front porch to the university when it comes to athletics, whether it's a great basketball program or if you have a great football program or just a lot of athletics departments and teams.
This is just something I think that needs to be said to a lot of people who like to stand on the line. Well, it's just wrong that this is where, like, all right, yeah, I mean, we can get into the what's right and what's wrong or how things should be in whatever world you want to live in your candy cane rainbow forest. But the bottom line is, like, people want to see this and they'll pay to see it. That's why there's money involved. And yeah, I mean, you can have the best chemistry professor in the world, but it's not going to excite most people as much as a really good football game or even a very bad football game. So the bottom line is, yeah, you've got to promote athletics. And the idea I think that a lot of people don't get is athletics is what, like you said, the front door. Athletics is what gets people excited about going to take your chemistry class. If you don't have any of that, if you're just like, listen, we don't mess around with trifling things like sports and arts and, cool stuff that you can do. We are just about chemistry and literature and these things, and that's what's important. And you can't be a serious person if you do this. Well, your university is going to suck.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of backlash to this quote. There's a lot of people that don't like E. Gordon Gee.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that don't like him, especially in Morgantown, that want him to go ahead and move on. And I saw, a lot of backlash to this quote swirling around yesterday. And I think he's just kind of saying the quiet part out loud, but sometimes, like, you don't need to say the obvious. And I think that's what kind of went over poorly is, we know we just don't need the school president to say, like, that out loud and acknowledge it in that manner. Like, we still need to have some decor and belief that this is still school and this is still, university matters, and it's not just all about the, wannabe NFL program. But that's what a lot of universities are starting to feel like maybe they're turning the corner towards. And yeah, he's not the most popular guy. He did have some interesting things to say, though, over the last 24, 48 hours in regards to the possibility of Rich Rod. And then also this quote that got a lot of people going because it was probably a little bit too on the nose for people. I think there's still an element of just wanting to pretend like it's still kind of the way that it was. Mm-hmm. And even though we all know that it's not, when it gets acknowledged just that flatly, you're like, oh, don't say it like that, though. Like, don't say it that way. But yeah, this did not go over well, that particular quote, especially for people who see past just the football program. I
think that Gordon Gee also has a little bit of at times a misunderstood sense of humor. Yeah, he's right, though. I mean, the quote is correct, but at the same time, like you said, when the president says it, then people kind of go, oh, my God, what about academics? But he's right. Now, Brian Hartline. There's a lot of stuff out there right now. What's going to happen with West Virginia, whether it's Rich Rod, does he come back? And that's part of what E. Gordon Gee said about the possibility when his name was brought up. And then this one today, this is from our good friend Joey Foster. He's a great West Virginia fan and does some podcasts for them. Joey, thank you for this note. He sent this to me as I was on my way to the studio. Multiple sources telling Chris Anderson that Ohio State offensive coordinator receivers coach Brian Hartline was interviewed for the head coaching vacancy at West Virginia. Doesn't mean that he's one of the possible at the end of the game finalists, but that guy right there, you talk about someone who can maybe recruit, you get some players back wherever you are. He's a great recruiter, and maybe time for him to have this opportunity.
Well, particularly with wide receivers. He's the best wide receiver and maybe running back recruiter in the country. He can go into Texas and Florida and pluck guys right out. He's got great inroads. He's at the point where he needs to start interviewing for head coaching jobs. I doubt he's going to get this one, but I do like Ren Baker's approach here. If it's Rich Rodriguez, like, let's just say that we know Rich Rodriguez is a candidate. We know that Brian Hartline's a candidate. And let's say there's someone like Jamie Chadwell or John Summerall in there as well that are, okay, let's go back in the past and see if we can recapture that. I think it's always worth going down that road. I think it was worth going down it for UCF. It's not my favorite thing, but I think it's for them if they feel it's the best thing to do that. So go down that road. Who's a young up-and-comer who is very highly thought of? Let's look at that road. And then, who is somebody who's maybe not gotten their opportunity yet, like a John Summerall, who's obviously taken his name out of consideration for jobs in this cycle. But who is that guy? And then who's the best fit for us? Because if you just decide, I think the searches that often blow up in your face are the all or nothing. This is the only guy we want to be our head coach, and this is the only guy that we're pursuing. It is, again, it's all or nothing. It's, this was a great hire because this is who we focused on, or this is a terrible hire because we only focused on one guy.
I'm just glad to see some fresh blood being mentioned with this job, not just a retread of Rich Rodriguez. I think that, obviously Andy Kotelnicki was linked to this for a few days there, and that made a lot of sense, and he's going to be a head coach sooner rather than later, and that would have been a nice grab, but he decides, or whatever's decided, he remains in Happy Valley, and so then it goes from kind of a Kotelnicki and then a mystery box of who else maybe has Ren Baker talked to and Rich Rod to then Rich Rod. And is there anybody in the mystery box? Because Kotelnicki's out now, so what's remaining other than Rich Rod? And surely Ren Baker, who is still a fresh AD and is not a West Virginia guy, has got to have some ideas outside of like the coach who was here 20 years ago. That's the part to me that's been hard to kind of wrap my head around is we know Ren Baker, and it's hard to believe that, unless there's just like a list of bad timing where nobody's interested or nobody's quite ready for it, that's the route you go. I just feel like he wants to make his own splash and it not be about bringing the guy back to bring the glory days back. Now, he may still do that. That may be the best choice when all is said and done. That might be the best choice. But I just think that if Ren Baker had his way, that as he's been planning for this for a couple of years now, he'd have a guy that's like his guy, And so this would be a guy like that. This would be a Ren Baker guy, and this would be an excellent hire because Brian Hartline is going to be a head coach in the future.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure. And he's one of the best coordinators, best assistant coaches, best recruiters in all of America. His list of talent that he's brought to Ohio State over the years is, unmatched by 99.9%, and I don't even know who that 0.1 would be comprised of. So that, to me, got me excited when I saw, there's a fresh name. There's a new guy that could be very exciting, and I would be over the moon, I think, about the possibilities, and just thinking of the talent he could bring to Morgantown would have me really pumped up. But, yeah, don't know how realistic this is. Cool to see the name mentioned, and we'll see if it throws a wrench in the plans for, the big 20-plus year reunion for a lot of the old Mountaineer faithful.
Well, on the chat room or in the chat room, a lot of feedback and from Mountaineers fans. By the way, Kenny Evans, I would love to have Rich Rod back at West Virginia. Let me see.
A lot of people would, man. That's become clear. A lot of people would.
No, but James H220 or 2229, the big donors want Rich and will give him a bunch more money. This is why it matters. It is him. From Patrick, if it's not Rich Rod, then it needs to be a big splash. You brought that term up. Or someone who can recruit extremely well. Hartline, if in fact is involved that heavily. Grateful from on the chat room line. No Rich Rod, please. Bring Rich home. Rich Rod home. John Mark Thompson. Thank you, a lot of you, and I can't get to all of them because there's a bunch. I tried to get as many as we possibly can. He was advised to leave quietly, and he has regretted not giving a press conference when Rodriguez left West Virginia for Michigan back when he was with the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I don't care how much he regrets it. I just think that when you get to that point of hey, it's never been as good as when this guy was here, and that was a long time ago. And look, he happens to be doing really well where he is right now. Just won a conference title, but you can never go home again. I mean, like, that's
sure you can. Sure you can.
Yeah,
a lot of people do.
You wouldn't go back to Naples and Fort Myers?
No.
Okay.
No. It's different. I mean, like, you can, but like, it's never the same.
I thought you said sometimes most people did.
The same,
they do,
yeah. But the saying is not about you can never go home again. Whenever you leave and come back, it's always going to be different. What you come back to is never the same as what you left.
Scott Frost experience.
Sure, man. But like what he left was you weren't paying players. You weren't dealing with a transfer portal. You didn't have a college football playoff. I mean, like, there's so many different things. We could keep going on and on. Conference affiliations, like the way just the entire sport looks, it's drastically different. I think the good thing is he's proven recently, like this year recently, that he can win in this environment. So there is that of like, here's a guy who's playing for a championship in 2024. So he gets some grasping of it now, albeit at a much different level than what he would be jumping back into in terms of the money and the players you're going after and all those types of things. But I totally understand what you're saying, Paul. Like, it doesn't tickle my fancy. But again, we're not West Virginia fans. We don't have an emotional attachment or any kind of attachment to Rich Rodriguez. We just know what we watched in like the messy Michigan exit 20-something years ago, and that's our memories of it because that's just what we saw. For a lot of West Virginia fans, it's much more personal, much deeper, and they've got much different memories than just that. So I think that's what you run into in this conversation is a lot of the pro Rich Rod may not make sense to us because it doesn't seem exciting. It definitely doesn't seem fresh, and it just feels like there should be somebody better. But I do get, and that's why I keep repeating, I do get that fondness that a lot of West Virginia fans do have, and this belief, like every program believes that, well, like only certain people get you, right? Like only certain people really understand what it's like to be a Mountaineer in Morgantown, much like you could replace the city and the mascot name with any other school because that's how every university feels about it. But there is something to that sometimes. Some people do understand certain cultures better, and West Virginia is unique, and he is a guy that would understand that. But I think
he was born there, played there.
Yeah, so like he gets it, and he's one of them, and that matters too a lot of times in these coaching searches. Now, Scott Frost, it doesn't always work out very well. But Rich Rod has done it, and it's worked out well previously. So, yeah, I don't love rekindling with your ex after 20 years because I think it's just going to be another breakup probably. It could be even messier, or it just might not work out and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But there's an interesting little candidate there that could turn this whole thing on its head in Brian Hartline that at least gives you another piece to look at and go, ooh, now that would be very interesting.
Yeah, and here's what I'll tell you about Rich Rodriguez. Mac Brown couldn't go home again. I know that when he went back to North Carolina, like he thought that he was going to make everything better. Do you know how bad it went for Mac Brown at North Carolina? They are about to turn the whole thing on its ear because, I say this with respect and everything about Mac Brown. He's one of the classiest men in all of sports, no matter what it is. But what happened at North Carolina for Mac Brown is nothing short of failure. He got close to an ACC title once. All right. When he was there before, he never got to the ACC. Like he never won the ACC title. North Carolina hasn't. They're desperate enough to say like, hey, the age wasn't the factor. It was the guy. We're going to get an old guy that's not been in college for 50 years to come and do this because we've got to turn the whole thing on its ear. So,
well, Mac Brown had 9 consecutive years of 10 wins or more at Texas. His last 10 years in college football, he didn't do that. He had a 9-win team at UT in 2012, right before the year he left, and they won 9 games a couple of 3 years ago at North Carolina. I'm trying, as you guys were talking about, go back home. Some do, some don't. Sometimes it works. I don't think there's any kind of a special formula. It might work, it might not. But
Joe Gibbs.
Joe Gibbs, well, and he went back. He did not create what he had, which were 3 Super Bowls. But there was one year, maybe his first or second year, when he went back to Washington, where they were really good and got to a playoff team, and in fact may have sent Parcells into retirement. But yeah, but it's just, I don't know. Rich Rod, as far as I'm concerned, I trust Ren Baker, E. Gordon Gee to be able to kind of figure this out. I think Ren's got a little bit of the ability to not look at the same cupboard with the same cans in there, that he'll find some new food. And doesn't mean, though, you don't go back to what has worked there before.
Yeah, again, I don't know how much I trust Guy as far as the decision making. I don't know his profile well enough to know how much trust to put into him in this regard, but I definitely trust Ren Baker. I think he's one of the better ADs in the country. I think he's done a great job in his short amount of time in Morgantown, and I think that was, again, the most surprising part to me when all of the reports started coming out was like, man, he doesn't have his own guy. Like, he's been building this for a couple years. He doesn't have his own guy, and I think maybe Andy Kotelnicki was one of those guys, and Brian Hartline's one of those guys. But again, if Rich Rod's the best choice, and that's what the donors want, and the donors say, hey, we'll put this much more money if it's Rich Rod, and you have maybe a feel around town of like, hey, he would put butts back in seats, and the alumni are like, hey, man, we are all about this, then Rich Rod could be the best choice. But that's up for Ren Baker to decide. So that's what he'll decide, and then we can go from there. But I do like that there's at least another option that appears to be out there, so it's not just like, oh, well, Kotelnicki said no, and now it's only Rich Rodriguez. There had to be more to it than that. And so I think to see that story fleshed out a little bit is encouraging that, okay, there was more depth to it than just this guy or that guy, which is not surprising and what you should expect because Ren Baker knows what he's doing.
Garrett, you need to get that Country Road song out. We are dominating our opening segment with West Virginia fans. By the way, Yeti 304, Country Roads, Take Me Home. Paxton said they ought to wait for Jeff Monken after Army and Navy. Kenny Evans, Country Roads, bring Rich Rod home, the place he belongs. Many of you, Schiano, good point from Michelle. Schiano was at Rutgers and then kind of flailed around or whatever, and went back. They're pretty good. A
guy that knows Rutgers football, and that did work, and that's a great example. I was sitting here racking my brain trying to think of some other examples of it, but that's a perfect one is Greg Schiano. And, we'll see, obviously, with Scott Frost and Mac Brown, we got a good taste of. And you could say that it wasn't successful. Yeah, he didn't win anything major, but did put some guys in the draft and made North Carolina at least somewhat relevant, maybe a tad more than they would be. I don't know. It's North Carolina football. It's not exactly a juggernaut to begin with, and I don't mean to take a personal shot.
It's bizarre to me that they have just kind of like UCLA.
It's like a team that should be a lot better, but they just aren't because they're a basketball school. But, I think for North Carolina football standards, they were okay. But, at some point you need more, and he wasn't able to push them over that line. But he was also at the tail end of his career, and so, it's different situations, but I don't think there's no, you can't do that. Like, there's clearly examples where you can, and it can be somewhat successful, and maybe he's the example that will be really successful. We don't know.
Ham Dog, these guys don't get it. You're talking to us. You're obviously a Mountaineers fan. Rich Rod all the way. We probably don't. Like we said, we're not in the middle of all that. We're not Mountaineers fans. We like covering them. It's been fun. But
man, go rewind about 5 minutes ago because I just said all that. I just said that and said we're not West Virginia fans, so we don't quite understand the Rich Rod appeal the way that fans do. So we already covered all that, and we acknowledge that. And so we're looking at it from an outsider's point of view, like every other analyst looks at every other job in America. And I get the appeal for Rich Rod. Don't fully emotionally feel it like you do, but I understand it, and that's why I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to fans like you. And saying, hey, if that's what the people want, maybe this is the best hire. I think we're being very open-minded about it. So, we get it to the extent that we can get it as non-West Virginia people, and we want West Virginia to hire the best guy because we want the best for West Virginia football. So if that's Rich Rod, then that's great. It's not going to change our day either way, but we do have opinions still on, is that exciting? I don't know. But, West Virginia fans are going to be the ones that make this call.
It's a very unique fan base. It's like maybe 3 or 4 others around the country. You either West Virginia or you're not. That doesn't mean you can't be outside of there and have success. Patrick, plenty of other people probably want the job, but I assure you the people here, and this does make sense, want a West Virginia man. You can't get Saban or Jimbo Fisher.
You could get Jimbo Fisher would. I mean, you could get him on a song too because he's got so much money owed to him by A&M. You could say like, "Hey, can we, do this?" Yeah, I mean, but is that the right guy? Jimbo can recruit. He can absolutely recruit.
Absolutely.
He's just not very adaptive when it comes to scheme.
Virginia Glock 17. We just had someone say, "Rich Rod, you guys don't get it." I'm a Mountaineers fan. No Rich Rod in capital letters with exclamation marks. So
and totally get that as well. Yeah. Totally get that.
I would rather have Jimbo Fisher than Rich Rod if you're talking about a West Virginia guy because Jimbo Fisher has been wildly more successful than Rich Rodriguez. And it's not even close. It's not even close.
What are you, drugged today or something, talking positive about him?
Well, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
Here's the thing. I'll tell you two negative things about Jimbo Fisher. He is a little bit prickly. He's not Frosty the Snowman walking around and singing songs.
A lot of coaches aren't.
Yeah. And he is what did him in at A&M was not being adaptable schematically. And I think if you told them, like, we would like you to hire an offensive coordinator and be a little bit more willing to adapt to new schemes, and he did that he could still do it again. But he's an absolutely fantastic recruiter, and that's never been in question. He is just fallen into some of the old school coaching potholes that a lot of guys do. Not moving on from assistants fast enough, or
well, he's not a part of the search apparently.
But those things. So if you want to talk about a guy who's infinitely more qualified to be your head coach, I would say it's Jimbo Fisher. But if he's not part of the search, he's not part of the search. And again, wildly more successful at every stop than Rich Rodriguez was.
From Tosh Miller, I trust Wren will make the best decision. Craig's point from James 2229 about the donors is spot on. And then one more here. Chase Strickland wants Rich Rod says he's better for right now than Jimbo Fisher. So there's a lot of that. Good stuff. Thank you to the West Virginia fans who have been with us, really a lot of you, from day one 4 years ago, and a lot that have joined us along the way during all of what's happened in college football.
I'm super excited to see whoever it is. If it's Rich Rod, that'll be an incredible story with lots of meat on the bone to discuss. And if it's Brian Hartline, that would be amazing and quite a shake-up type hire that, man, I think about the wide receiver talent that would flood into that program and other offensive talent just talent in general, but especially offensive skill talent and wide receiver talent. But either way, we're going to be here covering it. We have a great respect for West Virginia, and we know it's been a rough little run here of late, even though there's been some high points here and there, but it was time to move on from the climb. That was very clear, and I know there's an excitement in the air around Morgantown right now that hasn't been there for a while. And it'll depend on who the hire is of how excited it gets overall. But there's just this uniqueness about a coaching search, man, that especially for a fan base that feels like it's gotten maybe a little bit stale or it's just kind of spinning its tires. When you get that opportunity to turn things a different direction, there's few things that are more exciting as a college fan, especially when you've got an AD with a good head on his shoulders and you've got commitment. And I think West Virginia's got those things. I don't know that everybody's obviously going to agree on who the guy is, but there's an excitement for what West Virginia football can go and do with this hire, and I think that's great.
I think it's great, and we are happy to talk about it. How about this? Brian Hartline gets the job. Okay, let's just throw this out there and have fun with it. And then you close your eyes, and then there's Tavon Austin and Stedman Bailey and David Sills. And let's throw somebody else in there. Just anybody. That's the kind of wide receivers that Hartline, of course, has brought to Ohio State. Just bringing up those type of names among the great wide receivers in West Virginia history.
I mean, arguably, he brings even better guys as far as, draft picks go. He brings, top 5 NFL draft picks. Those guys were incredible. Those are West Virginia legends. I'm not demeaning them at all. But to your point, yeah, he brings those guys. He brings guys who are even higher rated than any of those guys ever were. So, yeah, you'd have Stedman Baileys and all types of talented players along those same lines that would be flooding the hallways of the football facilities once again. Yeah, he's definitely a talent bringer, that's for sure.
To the portal. One note on the update of Bill Belichick in North Carolina. There has been a lot of different and varying reports. This one here from inside Carolina. You would think they would know that they are finalizing a deal to land Bill Belichick as a new football coach. I have not seen anything since I arrived at the studio or since we have been on the air, that where it seems like it is leaning that Bill Belichick will become the head coach at North Carolina, but nothing yet official. Other than that right there, all but official that they're finalizing the details with him.
Well, this is wild news that I did not think we would be talking about. I know it's not official, so we'll still have a show maybe later today. It'll become official, and we can talk about it in that capacity, or maybe it's tomorrow. Certainly feels like something's going to break in the next couple of days before the week is up. And that's what I'm wondering about the West Virginia job. Is it does feel like North Carolina is kind of winding this down because the only name you're hearing is Belichick. But with West Virginia, I wonder what Ren's timeline is. Like, because there's got to be this feeling of, I mean, you feel it with the fan base, right? Like, they need to hire somebody, but I do wonder how much longer that's going to go on and how patient he will be with that search. But North Carolina's seemingly been locked in on Belichick for a few days now. And it doesn't, again, I'm not a North Carolina fan. So as an outside observer, I go, Belichick, like at his age and no Brady and, those types of things. Like, I don't know. But look, it's North Carolina football, right? We were just talking about this. It's not like it's Alabama or it's Texas. Would this bring interest to North Carolina football? Absolutely. Would there probably be some prospects that might not otherwise look their way? Absolutely. Would this bring coverage that they haven't quite had in this type of way? Absolutely. So I totally get the hire. I would not love to sign up a guy who's like approaching 75 and doesn't have his magic quarterback that he's had all this success with, but it's still Bill freaking Belichick. So if you can go hire arguably one of the greatest football coaches of all time, then I'm not going to say you're doing something stupid.
Yeah.
I just wish he was a little bit lighter in terms of age, but hey, what do I know?
Here's my question. Why in the world is he not wanted by NFL teams, or is he?
I have a theory on this. I think he's probably wanted by some NFL teams, but the teams that want him, he doesn't want. Like, I think he would have he's 26 or 27 wins away from Don Shula's record in the NFL. So that's 2 to 3, like 3 average years and 2 really good years, or 2 years and then the first couple of a third one from breaking that record. I don't know if that's all that important to him as being the number one. I mean, he's already got more Super Bowls than anybody. Like, what does the total number of wins mean after that? Because they don't count the playoff wins either. Like, if you throw the playoff wins in there, he's dominant. So in his mind, he might already have that. I don't think he wants to go. Like, if he's gonna build something, he might as well innovate. And that's what he's trying to do at North Carolina if he takes that job, is rework the way that college football builds rosters and does it in the modern world. And for that, I have a lot of respect, because it's going to have to change no matter what. I mean, you hear coaches complaining about the calendar and different things all the time. They're going to have to do things a lot differently. Now, is this a swing that they can afford, that everybody could do? I mean, who even knows in the long run about what he's in this 400-page Bible of what they need to do? But I think when it comes to the NFL, it's, okay, if I'm going to get those wins and I want to win a Super Bowl again, I don't want to go to, the Jets and have to completely deal with bad ownership and all these other things. There's probably 4 owners he wants to work for. He worked for one of the best in Robert Kraft. Do you want to go work for Woody Johnson after you worked for Robert Kraft for a quarter century? Hell no. I don't want to do that. Do you want to go work, like Carolina's not going to be open more than likely, but do you want to go work for a guy like that? Or do you want to work for Jeff Lurie in Philadelphia and maybe win something? The Giants maybe would be intriguing to him, but again, that's a total rebuild.
Let's get back to, I get it.
That's what I'm
you
saying.
answered my question. I'm glad you told me that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly got an interest in it, and it's apparently ball in his court, so the interest is there. The homework is there. He did his homework assignment, came prepared to the job interview. They've talked multiple times. He's talking to potential staff hires, and he has made the comments apparently that the college game's a lot like the modern NFL, or vice versa. Modern NFL is a lot like the college game. And as we know, if he were to go take over an NFL job, you've got the whole free agency bugaboo you got to deal with, and you've got to wait to go get your star quarterback in the draft or whatever the case may be. Here, hey,
go get him.
Nice to meet you. I'm Bill Belichick. Here's my Super Bowl rings. You want to come play for me? And I think that would be appealing to a lot of people. So, yeah, it's easy to see why North Carolina is interested. It's apparently up to him now at this point. according to what's out there today. And I'm fascinated because here's a sport that, even this last summer we're talking about whether or not you're going to see an exodus of college coaches to the NFL because this assistant left for like the Dolphins running back gig or whatever, type of examples were out there. And here's the greatest NFL coach maybe ever trying to get into the college game. So I think we all had it backwards that it might not be as appealing to fans in some ways, but it maybe be more appealing than ever to college football coaches or former NFL coaches that are still looking to coach to get into college football nowadays because of what you have at your disposal. It's a totally different job than you've got to go and recruit 24/7 and grind away. It's not that anymore.
I don't think he's going to have to do that. I think that's why you bring your son along, who's very good at what he does at the University of Washington. You build a system. Eventually, you go kiss his ring if it's time to commit, that kind of thing. He's going to look at the names and the talent. He knows what he's doing. He can do that and set up a constructive, methodical process to help get them where they want to be.
Yeah, I think the part for me that I'm hung up on is he is 72, which doesn't mean he can't be fully functional and successful and still be, doing a great job. It just, because of that, it makes me wonder, all right, if you're building this thing up, like how long does that take? And maybe in modern college football, as we've seen with multiple examples, Kenny Dillingham being one of those, like less than 2 years. Less than 2 years if you do it right, you can be winning a conference championship in certain places. And I don't think the ACC is just full of world beaters at the moment.
No.
Like he could get them into contention pretty quickly if he knows what he's doing and seems to be as prepared as he seems to be. So, yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Never thought we'd be talking about this type of story in a million years.
I'll tell you, look, the best team of the last decade and a half in Clemson has lost 8 games in the last 2 years. So, I mean, if you're going to strike and try to hit the big guys while they're down, I mean, Clemson's the ACC champ, but they're not, the ACC champ at 11-1 or 12-0.
There's nobody in that conference.
They got help to get into the game.
Florida State and Clemson were, where there's a Georgia sitting there, or what we see now from Texas or Alabama. It's very much you can go get a piece of that.
Yeah, Fran Brown in Syracuse. He rolled in there in 1 year and started to make a lot of noise. Like, there's no reason Bill Belichick can't do it. He's just going to be wildly different style from Fran Brown. But point being that in college football now, because of the rules and the lack of them, you can definitely go into a program and quickly turn it around. This isn't a 5-year plan necessarily, although 400 pages, he's probably prepared for a 5-year plan if he needs to.
Yeah, it might be a little bit too much. That sounds like government right there. Garrett, did you get that? Is there a chance? You don't have to have it. That's fine. Iowa State, according to Brett McMurphy, has extended Matt Campbell's contract 8 years, coming off an appearance inside of the Big 12 championship game, losing to Arizona State.
I have no problem, and if any time during the 8 years he leaves, telling you that I think that he'll see all 8 years of that at Iowa State. I think he's
the narrative around him is totally flipped. It took about 10 years, but hey, job's open. Let's mention Matt Campbell every single job.
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, he'll be there another 8 years.
Yep.
No,
we got 3 guys in that same area: Leipold, Kleiman, and Matt Campbell. If they ever leave again, you don't think
Campbell's by far the one that's always brought, or was for a while, always brought up to the point where he stayed in Iowa State.
No, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that those 3 guys are all together, and I think all of them are going to be fine, most likely staying there, along with Campbell.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, because Kleiman's the only one who has another coach to live up to. He's the only one of those 3. Iowa State and Kansas, it's like Scott Drew at Baylor. Like, look, Kentucky, they took their swing, right? They took their swing, but ultimately that's Adolph Rupp and Rick Pitino and John Calipari and all those guys. Baylor's Scott Drew's program. Iowa State is Matt Campbell's program. There's nobody that they're going to say, like, he was never as good as old Skip McGinty back in 25. Like, no, there's nothing. There's not even that.
Yeah, he's all-time leader in wins there now, too.
I hesitate to say like that emphatically. I could definitely see Kleiman staying at K-State. I don't know about Leipold. I could see him going a different direction. But who knows? I mean, it depends on what opportunities these guys are presented. All those guys are very good coaches. But, yeah, I could see them all staying where they are. I could see maybe a Leipold getting a call from some Big Ten school or something and perhaps being interested in that. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. That's all hypothetical. The story is Matt Campbell's and his contract extension.
That's why I brought it up before the break.
And that's big news for Iowa State, although not surprising. And I think it's justly rewarded. You've justly rewarded a guy who's your winningest coach ever and who just took you to another Big 12 championship game. That's 2 now. Obviously, there's that hump to get over, which is actually winning one of those things. And I thought they had a pretty good shot this year. But ultimately, the Sun Devils were just a bit too much on Saturday in Arlington, though. The program's in really good shape. There's no reason to believe they won't have another crack at that thing sooner rather than later. And in a Big 12 that's any man's guess about how it's going to turn out, I mean, having consistency and having a program that's been built for the long run, I think, is something that can give you a little bit of a leg up on others when there's not a lot that separates you. And he's the most successful guy there ever. I mean, he's going to have a golden statue outside that stadium one day. If he were to stop right now, that would be the case. With a couple Big 12 appearances, some big bowl wins and all of that. So great day for Iowa State. I don't think there was any fear that he was going anywhere because this cycle we actually haven't heard him mention for many jobs. And I think to what I was saying a few minutes ago, I think it has become clear now of like, oh, no, he's not just looking for the quick exit. Like so many seasons have gone by now and so many jobs of whether it's been his choice or the actual universities themselves. Either way, we've gotten to this point where Matt Campbell's fine staying in Ames, and he said that for a long time, but I think now finally people believe it. And believe that
so
that's
many coaches have said that and not been telling the truth. He seems like you're right. He seems pretty committed to that. 8-year extension, good stuff for Iowa State and Matt Campbell and the Cyclones. We have some transfer portal stuff we'll get to later on with Paul. When we come back,
one of those news.
Taylor McHargue of CBS and ESPN.
And one of those news, might as well lump it in here. We can circle back to it. But Rocco Becht announced that he was coming back today. And so that coincided with the Matt Campbell news. I don't think that was a surprise. I think the only way you'd have considered him leaving would be if Matt Campbell would have left. But either way, it's not a bad thing to get a big public declaration and get people excited about next year. So Rocco Becht, according to Brett McMurphy, had multiple programs from the ACC and the SEC that were coming after him, trying to get him to enter the portal, and he's staying in Ames. So big day for Cyclones fans to have that double whopper of news.
From Lorenzo, he turned down Wisconsin and maybe Washington. In the past, you don't turn down Wisconsin and then you take the job at North Carolina if, in fact, it's offered. Didn't buy that story at all. He was talking about if you turn down Wisconsin or Washington, then obviously North Carolina is not going to pique your interest no matter that it's a Power 4 conference team or not. When we come back, we'll hear from Taylor McHargue, his thoughts about what's going on with the playoff, but also with some of the news from today. And we have Jed Drenning, who's the sideline reporter for West Virginia Radio today at just after 4. Mark Daniels on the Scott Frost hire at UCF. And then Zach Gelb at just after 5 o'clock today from Infinity Sports Network, plus a lot more. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. What does all that mean? As you get older, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone that can affect a lot of things within your body and even your emotions. You could be lethargic. You could be grumpy. You could, that might define a lot of us at times, but also your sleep habits are even affected. Yes, you hear a lot about ED and sex drive when it comes to a lot of the pills and prescriptions and much more that are out there. But also there are injections that can help increase your testosterone level that might and probably will get you back to where you want to be. If you want to be the man that you were at one point and it's starting to slip away before it's too late, contact Dr. Kent Petty and his staff at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Don't miss the best price deals during the wrap-up of year sales event at Allen Samuels. Save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new 2025 Rams. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, Ram trucks give you that first-class feel. Hurry in and shop our great selection in-store or online today. Shop an award-winning dealership with award-winning product. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Our communities are facing unprecedented times. At Boozer's Jewelers, we care about you and your family. If you're like me, your home has unwanted or unused jewelry lying around. They can have value, and that means we can turn that jewelry into instant cash. This is a great way to get the most value from your unwanted jewelry. At Boozer's Jewelers, we buy all kinds of unused jewelry. So give us a call and let us give you peace of mind and cash for your unwanted or unused jewelry.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Retired stockbroker, your sense of humor, I think, is great, but sometimes I don't have time for it. But I love what you put in the chat. We will maybe read that later on. All right, we're joined by Taylor McHargue, CBS and ESPN college football analyst. Taylor, I want to start with, we'll get to the playoff and the Heisman, et cetera, but what are your thoughts about Rich Rodriguez and the possibility that he might end up back in West Virginia, and Bill Belichick, forever and ever NFL coach, unbelievably successful, as a possibility at North Carolina?
Yeah, well, I think it's fascinating also with Scott Frost going back to Central Florida,
yep,
and with Rich Rod going to West Virginia, both of those guys that are obviously had a ton of success at those stops. And I know you asked about Rich Rod, but I thought Scott Frost's comment was really interesting in his press conference, where he was talking about the road to success and not stopping to realize, hey, I've got it pretty good here at Central Florida before he took the Nebraska job. Now, obviously he played there, so there was a ton of appeal and draw to try and make it happen. But I think the biggest, obviously, out of the three of those is Bill Belichick. I think, to be honest, I'm a little bit stunned, because I get that the college game is moving to more of a professional model, but I think there's a big difference in dealing with professionals and professional agents versus, you're recruiting 16, 17, 18-year-olds that now have agents, and it's not the same. And sometimes these are not the most professional agents. Sometimes if you listen to Mike Gundy from earlier this year, these guys he's got players on his team where, their college roommate is their agent, and he's having to deal with them on renegotiating their contract in the summer. And those are going to be the things that Bill Belichick has to deal with now. So I don't think there's any question he's going to be successful. I did think it was interesting at this point in his life and his career that he would get back into the college game.
Yeah, I look forward to the, a recruit saying, like, Bill Belichick came to me and was like, hey, you want to come to North Carolina and, win some games? Like, that's just not what you picture. But look, Deion Sanders doesn't go house to house anymore. And apparently Bill Belichick wants to build essentially an NFL-style talent acquisition wing of the recruiting department, where coaches could maybe focus more on coaching and the general manager recruits.
Yeah, I think this will be – we're already starting to see the tide really turning with the top programs in the country, that, the term general manager, I think for a couple of years, fans and even people in the sport kind of rolled their eyes at. What does a GM really do in college? Not anymore. I think that is a very real and very necessary position. And even at your group of 5 level schools, that's important. But certainly at the top of the sport, that goes beyond one person, right? It's going to be an entire team of people, and that budget is that has to increase for a lot of programs because this sport more and more, and it's kind of always been this way, but it really now is about talent acquisition because the way these contracts are handled right now, where it's basically just 1-year deals and you're reevaluating your own team and you're re-recruiting your own team, you better have a group of people just like in the NFL. They've got scouts that handle the college level, and then they've got scouts that are handling the other pro teams, and they're constantly evaluating their own roster. That's going to become more and more the model of college football.
Taylor, there is so many guys that have entered the portal. It's impossible to go over even like a single group in a segment, but we've seen some interesting names as far as the quarterbacks go. You got Mensah from Tulane, obviously Wegman from Texas A&M, various others that are on the move. Mensah going to Duke, but Wegman still looking around, and Houston appears to be a possibility for him. Braden Locke from Wisconsin's in the portal, and there's various others. So I'll leave it to you. Who has jumped off the page in terms of a portal quarterback or maybe even just a portal player that is now of major interest to you?
Well, I thought Malik Murphy was interesting. I thought that Duke would try to retain him. I thought that was you talk about Mensah backfilling him. That to me, that entire kind of chain reaction to me seems like a lot of these decisions are being made before the end of the season, which I think more often than not that is the case. Wegman going back home to Houston makes a ton of sense, and that would be a huge win for Willie Fritz because there's been stretches of Wegman's play where it was really good, and if you get any sort of consistency at that spot in the Big 12, I think Houston all of a sudden goes from their move well beyond what their win total was this year, and I think that's going to be the case for Houston regardless. And then the rest of who's in the portal right now, nothing surprises me anymore with the portal. I think the thing that people need to remind themselves of is these rosters have been cut down to 105 now. And told a story earlier on Sirius XM radio, but we had a family friend who kid plays at a Power 4 school, and he had to have the conversation this week about we're going to retain you. You have a roster spot next year. Are you going to be here? But there were a number of his teammates and friends that were walk-ons and scholarship players that were cut and told after the bowl season, you're not going to be here. So if you're going to go into the portal, go ahead and do it now. And those conversations are going on all over the country. And getting to 105 roster spots, that is going to be a massive shift in how recruiting is handled and roster retention. And the walk-on program for major college teams is a really important part of filling out their roster and prep. And that is effectively going away. And that's going to be more than the portal. That's the piece that there's going to be some real changes, and that's really going to impact your group of 5 and FCS teams because you've got this flood of talent that's now out there, not only in the portal, but on rosters where they had a spot and now they don't.
Taylor, did the college football committee get all of it right, most of it right? What did you disagree with, whether it's seedings or who was in or who was out?
Yeah, I think they got it right in terms of who got in. I was pleased to see that SMU got in. I think I know the committee was valuing Alabama's wins in the top 25, but I think also SMU didn't have a loss nearly as bad as Alabama going on the road and losing by multiple scores to Oklahoma. So a 3-loss Alabama team with that loss and the Vanderbilt loss, I didn't think deserved to be in. I also think SMU, the way that they played in the conference championship and it going down to the wire, I think that's what ultimately got them in. I think the seeding was my only real, I don't know if gripe's the right word, but you could point and say Oregon runs the table, they're undefeated, and their reward is they've got to play the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee versus Penn State. They lose the conference championship, and they get rewarded with a home game against SMU, and if they win that, then they turn around and play Boise State. And if you look at how the spreads look right now and what projections would look like, there's nobody that has a more favorable matchup than Penn State, who will be heavy favorites against both of those teams. And I also think Texas got a great draw. Getting to play Clemson at home, they're a 2-score favorite. And then if they win, getting to play an Arizona State team that Arizona State wants to run the football. No one has had success really running the football against Texas front. So I think Texas got a great draw. I think Penn State got a great draw. And I think Oregon, out of really everybody, I think they got one of the worst draws.
Taylor, is there anybody that's entered the transfer portal that doesn't have a home that surprised you that they entered, or is there someone like maybe under the radar that you've seen, especially doing AAC games and some of those that people may want to look at that power level?
Not really. Most of the guys that go into the portal now, you kind of expect it because it's one of two things. It's either a guy that wasn't getting the playing time they expected, or it's somebody that they're going to try and go get a check. They are going to try and elevate their status and move up to the Power 5 level, or Power 4 level. I think the guy that from a group of 5 school that I've seen a lot that I think still has a ton of upside was E.J. Warner. I think the way he was used at Rice, it was not to his advantage. And with what Scott Abel wants to run at Rice, it made all the sense in the world for him to go ahead and jump in the portal. But I had him a couple of times when he was at Temple. He is a really dynamic passer, but he needs to be in an offense where it's wide open and really more of an air raid system, even though he's a smaller stature guy. And I thought the system that Bloomgren was running with him at Rice, that was not tailored to him. He looked uncomfortable, looked like he was in his head quite a bit. So that's a guy that don't be surprised if you see his name pop back up and play good football down the line.
That leads me perfectly into my question. I was going to ask you about Rice and about are you going to get with the collective and you go pony up and get the big quarterback for the new coach? Taylor, are you working on that right now?
You guys are going to get me in trouble. I think Rice is there. I can say this. There is a concerted effort to make sure that there's a couple things going on. Number one, having a new coach, trying to reinvigorate a fan base that for a while now has wanted to see that program turn the corner. It's been a decade of losing seasons. So there it is, the collective as strong as it's ever been. And then the other thing, Rice is trying to raise a ton of money to revamp their stadium. And part of that is going to be, after we won our conference championship, it's amazing how quickly they turn around and build a brand new facility. It's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think the new president, Reggie DeRoche, and the athletic director, Tommy McClellan, they are pro-athletics. They want to get football, baseball, basketball back in the right direction. Basketball is off to a great start this year. So Rice has been in a not great spot for the major 3 sports there for quite a while. But it's not for lack of effort with this current regime. Tommy and President DeRoche are doing a fantastic job. And I have nothing but great things to say about them and hope, nothing but for the best for Coach Abel and looking forward to finally getting to meet him.
Do you have a Heisman vote, Taylor?
I don't, but if I did, it'd be Genty.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. I know if you did that you couldn't really say anything, although some guys still do. But I'd seen your tweet the other night, and I tucked it away for this segment, and I wasn't sure about the vote when you made it public. But, yeah, you would go Genty then.
What I would say, if you took Genty and put him on Colorado, I think he's a good enough player that Colorado would have, at a minimum, gotten them into their conference championship game. I think if you flip that and put Travis Hunter on Boise State's roster, they're not in the college football playoff, and if they are, they're definitely not ahead of a couple or one other power conference team. So I think the impact of Genty and what he did, I understand he ran against some defenses in the Mountain West that were not unbelievable defenses, but in the biggest moments against Oregon and non-conference, against UNLV when they had to play them twice, the entire structure of every team they played against was designed to stop him, and no one could. He's still got whatever his total is right now. I don't have it in front of me, but he's knocking on the door of beating Barry Sanders' record. And I'll say it again, getting them in ahead of a Power 4 conference championship team, that is a Herculean effort, and most of that is because of Ashton Genty.
Taylor, of the teams that are in the college football playoff, and we do appreciate your time, I was just doing this when you were talking about the defense, Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas, Tennessee, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Oregon are 6, 7 of the top 11 defenses in America. In this day and age where they're throwing the ball all around, but think about that. It's 7 of the 12 teams to get in are in the top 11. So defense still does make such a huge difference.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think Texas is maybe the best example out of everybody you just mentioned, because there's been a couple games, and as recently as against A&M and against Georgia, where if Quinn Ewers just plays fractionally better, they win both of those games. But quarterback play for Georgia and for Texas, you kind of go around the country. I don't think quarterback play has been great this year, but Texas defense has kept them in their 2 losses to Georgia. That is what kept them in games, and that's ultimately what got them the win against A&M as well, where Quinn is battling turnover issues and giving A&M short fields and giving them the ball back. So I don't think there's any question once you get into this time of year, if you can have a dominant front, if you can get after the quarterback without having to bring a ton of pressure, and you can limit explosive runs. I know that sounds like coach speak, but by this time of year, that's the stuff that matters most.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Taylor McHargue from CBS and ESPN college football analyst with us on Wednesdays, usually in the last part of the 3 o'clock hour. We'll hear from Jed Drenning of West Virginia's sideline reporter for the radio network in a moment. Other teams, think about this now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, and 11 are ranked in the top 10, 11 in defense, all in the playoff. SMU's 28. Georgia, believe it or not, is 35th. They've had those 2 shootout games with Alabama and Georgia Tech. Arizona State 36th. Boise 62. Clemson at 65. So those are the teams in the playoff inside where they're ranked total defense in college football. When we come back, Jed Drenning, how much is there a lean towards Rich Rod returning to West Virginia and Morgantown, or his thoughts on it and the fit factor too? He's next. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club. Tell them you watch what we do. Tell them that you watch 365 Sports or Sick'em365.com, and you'll get a discount. In fact, a pretty good deal from them, thanks to the general manager, Mike Mulsel and company. If you mention Sick'em365 Sports, you receive, if you apply for a membership, 2 months membership free. Stop by the club. It's inside McLean Stadium off I-35, just right there off the campus of Baylor. The Baylor Club with Sick'em365 and 365 Sports. Apply for a membership. Mention or put Sick'em365 in your application, and you receive 2 months membership free. I got to tell you something. They have phenomenal food. If you want to go out for kind of a nice fancy dinner there, you can. Or if you want to sit there and enjoy a lot of atmosphere and ambience, they have great food, the buffet style. And then on top of that, you, of course, have the amenities. If you are a business owner or somebody that has a business and you're trying to get in front of other people to be customers or clients or even maybe for advertising, it's a great location. And for luncheons and more, banquets and more, the Baylor Club. General Manager Mike Mulsel. Mention Sick'em365 Sports and get 2 months off, 2 months free membership on any application at the Baylor Club.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgin Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for Tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Paul Catalina with me, Craig Smoak with me. I'm David Smoak, and this is 365 Sports, and our good friend Jed Drenning, who is radio sideline analyst for West Virginia, also goes by the Signal Caller on Twitter and has, I think, as good and as thorough a preseason college football magazine that you've ever read. I mean that. I absolutely do. He's sent that to me before, and I mean that. I know that's a while off and it takes a lot of work. Hey, Jed, thanks for the time. Our chat room on 365 Sports, we've always had a lot of Mountaineers fans. But my goodness, they are on fire today with what they want, who they want, what else is out there. I know you can only say so much for right now, but where do you think they are in this search?
I think a decision or an announcement by Ren Baker, our athletic director, is imminent. He said from the outset, the quote that he used, it's an old John Wooden quote. He said, be quick, but don't hurry. And that's the approach that he wanted to take with this. Red's a very thorough guy. He does a good job of vetting candidates. He's always prepared. He always has a list. You never know what's going to happen. Like early in his career, he's talked about the fact that he had a younger head coach in one of his athletic teams when he was a young AD, just die out mowing his lawn one summer day. He said, so look, you learn pretty quickly. You always got to be ready to have a list and draw from that list and start vetting and start interviewing. So this is in good hands. That's a long story short. We're very happy with the 3 hires that Ren Baker has made at West Virginia so far, a volleyball hire and a men's and women's basketball coach hire. And so his track record precedes him, but he did a good job at North Texas too. But he's going to do it in a thorough manner and an effective manner, and he's looking at all the right things. I don't doubt that for a second.
Do you have a feeling about any particular coach? And in particular for me, do you have a feeling about Rich Rodriguez returning?
I try not to start on the guesswork side of things because the way these things tend to happen, so often you feel like you know more at the outset than you do a couple days in. That's probably how it should be. That means it's an effectively run operation. It's on lockdown. There's not a lot of information getting out. So I would prefer it to be that way. I just know that the names that I've heard floated, I can make a compelling case for any of those names that I have heard. So in terms of what it's been reduced to, that depends on who you ask. And again, there's really only one person at the end of the day that knows, and that's Ren. So everything else is guesswork. What I always caution fans of is when it comes to these circumstances, first of all, there's a lot of clicks to be had and a lot of downloads to be made when there's this kind of storyline. Everybody wants every update by every second. So, yeah, you can throw some chum out there and the sharks will bite. But just remember this rule. The people that speak the most probably know the least, and the people that speak the least might kind of sort of know the most. So that's the only warning that I would have to fans. It's fun to read and speculate. I get why they would do it. But at the end of the day, there's a very short list of people. Maybe that list is as a list of one that truly knows what's about to happen. So I don't know that I would want to guess. Again, there's names. You could toss a name at me and I could give you my thoughts and that kind of thing. But but I haven't really leaned one way or the other in terms of what I think or what I believe because I don't know.
Brian Hartline, just tossing the name. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Brian Hartline. First thing that jumps to mind, incredible recruiter. So what he might lack from a game planning or play calling standpoint, he can make up for or compensate in other ways. I would imagine. I mean, I know that he's been a critical component to that staff for a number of years, and the Ohio State fans, he is absolutely beloved by Buckeye Nation. And I would imagine also that when Chip Kelly came in, his dynamic or his role in that staff kind of sort of changed in some way. But that's a guy that he's a young up-and-comer. And in this age where, acquiring talent still matters as much as it ever has, maybe just in more unconventional fashion, a guy like that, I can see him leaving his mark, or I can see why he would move the needle.
Jed, not asking you for an opinion on if he's going to get it or not, but did Rich Rodriguez leave in any way that could not allow him to come back to Morgantown?
It's an ugly breakup, and there's going to be residual feelings when there's an ugly breakup, even 17 years after the fact, which it is now. It's a strange dynamic. There's a lot of fans that are still upset with what happened, or they believe happened, or whatever the case might be. And there's a lot of fans who are passionate about, hey, if there's maybe a possibility or a glimpse of a chance into returning to some form of that glory that we had when he was here, I'm all about it. But the strange thing about it in this dynamic, the people that are on a unified front behind Rich as a candidate are the former players, with very few exceptions. The former players are almost unanimously amped up about even the speculation of Rich returning to Morgantown. So that's what's intriguing about it. And I will say this, with some of these candidates, you might have the fan base look at it and they don't study it like we do, right? Like you guys do, or I do. And they might not know a whole lot about it. Some of the really good candidates, they might not know a lot about them. So they might not have much of an opinion. But with Rich, everybody has an opinion. I will say that. Everybody has an opinion. So there's no meh. When you bring up Rich's name, you don't get the meh. That doesn't happen.
Jed Drenning, voice of West Virginia Athletics, sideline analyst with us on 365 Sports.
Jed, part of the thing we've heard from our chat room with Rich is that, part of it was, 50% of them say, no way, let's not go back in the past. And 50% of them say, well, that was the glory days, let's recreate it. He's a West Virginia man and all that. Is that sentiment? Ironically, Rich Rodriguez was the first non-Michigan man that Michigan had hired, and they haven't gone away from that since him. They've always gone Michigan man. Is that sentiment really there among the alumni in a majority sense of that the only people who get us are us?
To an extent, yeah, there's some merit to that. And again, this happened when this unfolded in 2007 in early December. Everybody was kind of in a bad place. And by everybody, I also mean Rich. He was in an incredibly dark place. The fan base was in an incredibly dark place after what we just been through. And so I don't know that he was making clear decisions at the time. And then when he left, you found yourself in litigation against the university that he formerly worked at. So there's going to be some mudslinging from one side, from the other side. And then, of course, there's going to be attorneys saying, hey, you can't say anything in response to what they said. So it creates a mess. And it's a mess that just lives on in perpetuity. And a lot of that still exists. So, yeah, you're not terribly far off with that assessment because there's no couching this as something other than what it was. And that was an ugly ending to one of the greatest runs in the history of West Virginia football.
Jed, with the fan base, there's obviously a lot of the back and forth that you've talked about, but just what kind of a sense of excitement do you get when it comes to the fact that they are turning the page and that, whoever it is, they're going to rally around and be excited about or whatever, but just the fresh sheets on the bed for West Virginia football at this point, how much was that needed in your opinion, and how much are people looking forward to seeing that?
I think there's an appetite for it. And again, I don't think on any level this is really the indictment on Neil Brown that some have tried to make it. The structure of his job fundamentally changed from when he was first hired in 2019 to when he was let go a couple weeks ago. It's not the same job that he took. We're now in what I call college football 2.0. He was hired at the tail end of college football 1.0. West Virginia as a program overachieved wildly in college football 1.0 and did incredible things. Everything we ever accomplished, nobody thought we could. And we did it by cultivating talent, creating a locker room culture, and keeping kids together and developing them for 4 to 5 years. Well, in this new era, you can't do things exactly the same way. So we're still trying to find our way and, for that matter, finance our way in this college football 2.0 model. And right in the middle of all that was Neil Brown's tenure. So there was seismic change that took place under Neil Brown's feet while he was here. It turned out that we were little more than an average football team. We weren't a bad football team, not at all. We were an average football team, won half our games, found ways to lose most of the games against the better teams that we had a shot at beating. That's what average football teams do, not good football teams. We weren't a good football team. So at the end of the day, it was time to move on. It was time to make a change, and there is an appetite for that in the fan base. And I think the thing about it is the names that I have at different points from different places seen it narrowed down to, I think I can make a compelling case for each of those names. And that's what excites me. And I think on some level, that's what will excite the fan base.
So National Signing Day was last week, a week ago today. And
Yes.
we know that the transfer portal is nuts, depending on what you want to go in there and look at or who's leaving your program. West Virginia signed a nice chunk of players despite the changes. What do they have, at least at this time, without kind of break it all down into X's and O's? But what about the what's in the luggage, so to speak?
Okay, well, what you got, you had such a unique situation on signing day. We thought we were going to get, when Neil was here, we thought we were going to get maybe 23 kids in that class. Well, we ended up with 21 kids without a head coach. And we ended up flipping 2 kids without a head coach. That's a testament to the entire staff pitching in, guys that don't know if they're going to have a job, but they were just doing right by the university. And to some extent, Neil Brown pitched in after he was let go. So everybody kind of had a hand in this. We put together what we feel is a very solid class. That's the future. Now, as for the present, basically moving forward into Tuesday's bowl game, you can expect almost everything intact outside of a couple portal entries, the big one being Josiah Trotter. But outside of that, we got a core group of senior kids who want to play one last time together and show what we put on the field in Lubbock was not who they are, from Garrett Green to Wyatt Milam on down the line. And they want to go out and put their best foot forward and show the world, hey, that's not what we are, what you last saw from us. So I think we got some weapons. Everything that you saw at our best this year will be available in the bowl game. Now, in terms of next year, different story. We got to rebuild in a lot of different areas, but that's kind of where we're at.
Jed, Frisco Bowl against Memphis. So just your thoughts on that opponent coming right around the corner. So obviously we're not going to talk to you again before that, and a lot will unfold after that, where I'm sure you'll be very busy with whoever the coach is and everything else. But your thoughts on the Tigers and Mountaineers clashing here in Texas?
Tremendous amount of respect for the Memphis Tigers and what Ryan Silverfield has done there. I've watched a lot of tape on them over the last week. An incredibly talented, fundamentally sound, very well-coached football team in all 3 phases. I like what they do from a structure standpoint with Tim Cramsey on the offensive side. Obviously, the most battle-tested of all senior quarterbacks. He is an absolute handful. There's a record. There's a reason he's a 4-year starter, a 13,000-yard guy. Their run game hasn't missed a beat. That was something that concerned them out of last year into this year with the transfer from South Carolina. He's really humming. Weapons on the perimeter, great tight end. They've managed to put together a really solid offensive line. And on the defensive side, new coordinator there as well with Jordan Hankins, his first year. And they cause problems. They confuse you. It's an odd stack configuration. They'll throw a lot of different looks at you. Guys, what you kind of hoped for with this 10-2 Memphis team is they're favored, and they're favored for a reason. But what you kind of hoped for was bowl season oftentimes is all about who wants to be there most. And this is a Memphis team who entered the season not just with aspirations of winning the AAC, but maybe even winning a bid into the 12-team CFP playoff. Well, that didn't happen. They lost a game or two they didn't expect to, but they finished strong with the win over Tulane. You're thinking, well, maybe because they had such high hopes, maybe the Frisco Bowl doesn't excite them and we won't get their best shot. But I'm telling you, the way they finished against a ranked Tulane team with probably Coach Silverfield's biggest win at Memphis in the last game of the year, knowing they weren't going to the conference title game, I was so impressed by that. And this is such a senior-heavy team, starting with the quarterback position and moving out from there. I absolutely feel the emotional intelligence of this team is high enough that we're going to take their best shot, and they're not going to be disappointed to be in Frisco and the Frisco Bowl at all.
Jed, what is the situation with West Virginia financially as a university and as they move forward with this new wave of college football with all the changes we see?
I think that if everything falls according to what we believe, you guys are in the same camp I am in terms of the guesswork with this, but there's no reason to think that the House decision won't be certified next month, right? And if in fact that happens, the changes that are going to be afoot by next summer could actually be somewhat of a silver lining for programs that are tiered like West Virginia. And what I mean by that is, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been based almost strictly on NIL finances and how your trust is doing and how much revenue you can generate there. Well, it hasn't gone to the degree that we hoped it would. I mean, we've been toward the bottom quarter of the league for the last handful of years, but we believe that with these changes next year, if we are in fact fully funded up to that 22% of the athletic budget or the athletic income that you're allowed, that puts the football team in better standing to at least maybe fight our way into the middle of the pack from a spending standpoint and be competitive financially for the first time in a few years. So we think we could benefit from these changes, and maybe some of the disadvantages that we've tried to overcome the last couple of years won't be as stark or as extreme. And if that's the case, why not think that if you're given a puncher's chance, you can swing and knock off some of the big dogs in the Big 12 and be right there, even more in the hunt into November than we were this year.
Hey, man, great stuff. Giving us great insight on Hartline, what that might mean, or Rich Rod coming back or whatever else is there. That's why we had you on. You're great. We appreciate it. Good luck with the search. Wrap it up and moving forward. Thank you for your time, Jed.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter. It's the Signal Caller on his Twitter feed. And again, he does a great job of breaking down trends and analytics and data and really just X's and O's, not just for West Virginia, but also throughout the Big 12 Conference. When we come back, well, we checked in on West Virginia, and hear what he said. He said that a hire is imminent, but again, don't rush the process. Take your time, but get it right. And now we're going to go down to one of our great friends, Mark Daniels, the voice of UCF Athletics on the Scott Frost Return 2.0. He's next. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. Oh, I know a lot of you have worked with them as far as bought their product. Their next auction is January 9th. They're going to get through the holidays, and then they'll start back up again. There were as many as three live auctions online through one of their partners, which is who presents the auctions, BidOnBeef.com. And you can find them right there on the homepage when you go to TexasBeefHouse.com. They got so busy with people ordering online their product that they all of a sudden changed the market for how you buy or sell beef by going to these online auctions. And it's been amazing success. George Duval and the family, Samantha, Tyler, and many others, that they came up with the ideas. I have bought product that I wanted, could stay inside the auction. It lasts usually for a couple of days. And then if you want to buy fillets or, again, this is Wagyu and or Angus beef. It could be hamburger patties or something else like a brisket. You can buy it at the cost that you feel comfortable with. Instead of going to the store and let's say it's $22 a pound, you pay what you want to pay. And then if you feel like, no, I'm going to back away, you do. Just like you can at the grocery store, but at the grocery store, you can't change the price of what they want you and will make you buy your beef. It's a great company just outside of Tyler. It's TexasBeefHouse.com. And always, anytime you contact them or are a part of an auction, mention 365 Sports and you get a discount.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports rolling along on this Wednesday afternoon. We just spoke with Jed Drenning on what West Virginia might do and the different angles there. Oh, by the way, UCF. Welcome back Scott Frost, who gave them some glory and then went to Nebraska, didn't work out. Back with UCF. And Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics. You can see him on the screen. Good to see you, my man.
Good to see you guys. Happy holidays.
You too. When the UCF coaching change with Malzahn occurred, did you have Scott Frost on your radar pretty quickly?
I think when the vacancy happened at UCF, I would think any UCF fan probably wonders, well, gee, will they talk to that guy? And I think it was natural to assume that. Now, that still took athletic director Taylor McHargue having an open mind, because I think, guys, there's some optics there. Am I going to go talk to, let alone hire the guy that everybody else is trying to tell me about that I'm not connected to? But I think Terry was fair in the process and said, look, Scott deserves a chance to have a conversation. And then his candidacy grew. But if you ask a UCF fan 1 year ago, I don't think they would have told you that they would be in this position. And I'm not quite sure 10 days ago you would have convinced Scott, hey, there'll be an opening and you'll be the head coach.
Mark, I know that there's that I mentioned earlier in the show, but you can never go home again. What you leave is never what you come back to. And obviously, they're in a different conference. Things are different. He had a very rough stretch at Nebraska. What do you think is different, and how will he approach it differently, given the different conditions that he returns to at UCF? Because it is a different job than the one he left.
Look, there's some stars that align only because it's UCF. I don't know who would have hired Scott in college football outside of UCF. But there's also no job that Scott was going to leave the Rams, where he really enjoyed his time as an analyst, working with Sean McVay, that staff, creating a path that would have allowed him to maybe grow in the National Football League and not having to deal with all this stuff that we've been talking about beyond X and O's. So I think the only job Scott would have left for was to be the head coach at UCF. In the very brief time that I've seen Scott since he's come back, look, we're all older. He's been through a lot at Nebraska. I think he's still somewhat in shock that this happened so quickly to come back here. I think he also feels like, the circumstance was unique when he left, and ideally he didn't want to leave, and he wants to get it right and knows that it's a different UCF conference the business of college football. But I think the dots work for a variety of reasons in the sense of his past here. There's a comfort level with some of the people that he worked with are back here. I think there's a fan base that obviously is re-energized, and there's that kind of feel good about what it was. He made it very clear at his press conference. He's made it clear talking to others. This isn't 2017 continuing. This is a different football program, but I do think he feels like he can win here. And I do think he's aligned with an administration that has the same philosophy on how they want to build a roster in the coming years. I think we're all still learning about how do you do it. Some programs may want to portal it with 40, 50 guys every year. I don't think UCF's going to be that in the years moving forward. I think there'll be more of an emphasis on developing players. And I think that's where Scott and athletic director Taylor McHargue are kind of aligned of like, okay, I need to see that vision of developing guys and not just going into the portal every year.
What did you think of the hire of another favorite there down in Orlando and Mackenzie Milton as the quarterback's coach?
Do you ever turn down the second scoop of ice cream when they offer it to you? Many years ago?
Right.
It's also part of this incredible week for UCF. Mackenzie Milton's UCF royalty, and the connection there will last forever. And I said this in my show, talking to people. Imagine what the week was like for him. Mackenzie and Scott obviously have talked all the time, but here you are giving advice or being a sounding board for someone that's thinking, I want this job. I need this job. I can't imagine if I don't get this job. And Mackenzie's having conversation with Scott Frost, which include, and if I get it, you're coming. And Mackenzie clearly wants to come, and he needs Scott to get the job and then to have it happen. And you may have seen the picture in the video of Scott embracing Mackenzie when he arrived yesterday. Shaquem Griffin was there. Yep. And it's kind of throwing it back to 2017 again. But guys, you've been around college football long enough that certain programs need that culture re-energized, that need that thing that kind of makes your fan base feel like, okay, we're all together. And believe me, Taylor McHargue had plenty of options to hire good quality coaches that may have worked. This one has a different feel because of what it means to your football fan base, what it means to sell tickets for your donors, and that stuff matters in the economy of college football these days.
It's a passionate fan base. We just had Jed Drenning on. You know him with West Virginia. That's a very passionate fan base. There's a lot of these in the Big 12 because there's a lot of unique schools. Do you have to have connections with UCF to get UCF?
No, I don't think so, but I do think where UCF's program has been, it helps in this situation. I said this, I'll say it again. Gus Malzahn's a good man. Gus Malzahn's a good coach. And I wish Gus Malzahn nothing but success at Florida State and wherever else he goes. It just didn't work at UCF. And the way the season ended with a fan base that was very frustrated, and you kind of wondered, where are we? And how do we get it going? And this was going to be another massive rebuild for Gus in 2025, that I think the stars align, that somebody that knows a little bit about UCF, that experienced a football high, that understands why UCF is different, to play off of our youth, to play off of a social media approach that's different, a fan base that's different, in a fertile recruiting ground, in a major market that is also different compared to some other programs of the conference. I think those stars align where it makes sense. Now, ultimately, you got to win football games, but I do think in this situation, the UCF connection, and then bringing back some of those players of those teams in 2017 and 18, the back-to-back undefeated seasons, just makes you feel a little bit better. It still comes down to wins. We all know you can win a press conference, you can win an offseason. What's a football season going to be like? And Scott said at his presser, hey, if you think we're going undefeated next year, you got to wake up from that. But I do think he believes that he can win here, and he's going to build it differently than what he did in 2016 and 17. He has to. This is a different league and a much tougher league.
He mentioned in his press conference that sometimes you got to realize what you have is not bad. And I get the lure as a legend that won their last national title as the quarterback in Nebraska in 97. I think everybody anywhere can kind of maybe remember that saying, right? That what you have is not a bad deal, even though there might be something that looks better.
Yeah, and again, you got to understand the circumstances, okay? Again, Scott Frost didn't get fired from UCF.
Right.
He left for an opportunity. I think that's different than coaches that come back if they've been fired before. But guys, put yourself in the same situation. it's going home. It's a father that's not doing well health-wise. It's a state that is begging you to be the savior for something so important to them. It's a legendary coach in Tom Osborne that is also kind of making you feel like you have to do this. And that puts Scott in the position that he was in. I've said this again many times before. No other program was going to get Scott Frost away from UCF at the end of 2017. I'm not telling you he would have stayed there every single year, but it was Nebraska. And just like UCF is the only job he was leaving to come back to, the same thing, I think, applied. And, it didn't work out for the reasons that people know football-wise and the pressures got there. But Scott didn't want to leave. If Mike Riley won a few more football games, Scott Frost was going to be the UCF football coach in 2018 with a loaded roster that preseason hype probably would have had him inside the top 10, that would have given them a legitimate chance if they run the table to make the college football playoff. And when you build that and all of a sudden you're like, but I have to take this job, I have to go home, that's different than, you got fired or you just left to go to some other place. And that's why I think Scott understood what was unique then. And I think he relishes the opportunity now to come back here and build it back up. And I think he's going to be a different guy, but understands the unique situation.
Mark, this is a fan base also that realizes it's so far unrealized potential, I think, right? With now being in the Big 12, the enormity of it. I think the world barely knows how big UCF is right now. I think that if you're in Florida, you do. You certainly know how big the school has gotten and what the alumni base is and the growth that's happened in the last, just 10, 15 years. But is that something that you feel in the fan base of like, okay, this is the time, let's go, and it's not the time to wait around?
Yeah, it's a good point. Look, there's no argument here. UCF is in the Big 12 because of their undefeated seasons in 2017 and 18, and then the timing fell in place with expansion. And people will cherish those years. Now you've got a chance to build it up in a different league on a national level where now they have to accept you. Where before it was a nice story, but, just go to your bowl game and leave us alone. If you can do it at this level, then you have to win over the approval of people. It's tougher because this league is really good. It's a different financial model of college football. But yes, if Scott Frost and UCF can get it going, that's a different level of success than it was before. It's a national acceptance as well. Resources are here. There's still some things that UCF is still growing and playing catch up compared to some of our conference rivals, but there's a lot going for UCF, and it helps that Scott understands that as he tries to build this. And again, he knows, and guys, he learned this when he got to the Big Ten, that you may think a conference adapts to you. You end up adapting to the conference. Now I think Scott understands that. In the American, they were able to out-athlete people, not in the Big 12. Now, I think you can take advantage of things like speed and certain skill players that come from Florida and around the area here, but UCF's got to get tougher, physical, got to find linemen to compete in this league. But if you could do it, yeah, that's a different level of acceptance. No question about it.
How much has he been humbled?
A lot. And just in the brief time that Scott has been back here, I think, again, it's a combination of, wow, I get to go back there. I see familiar faces, and I've got resources that UCF didn't have before. I mean, we're not all the way there yet, but we got more resources than we had when he left here in 2017. But I think he understands. Look, he knows what the national image is. And I think the majority of national college football people are like, yeah, I don't know. Is UCF just tugging at history? He knows that. But it was important, the hiring process, that he convinced the AD and president this wasn't about getting even with Nebraska. This was about, I want to come to UCF. I want to go there because of what we did before and what I think we can do now. And I want to go there because I probably shouldn't have left, but you know why I did. So it's a different Scott Frost. It's the same quick, witty, one-line guy behind the scenes, but I think you're finding a very focused Scott Frost, diligent in putting his staff together, a philosophy about how to build a roster that may be different than what UCF has had. So, yeah, it's a different Scott Frost, but I think it's one that believes he can be successful again at a high level.
Yeah, I hope so. What he did at UCF, and obviously I hoped as a Nebraska lifelong born in Omaha that it might work out. Obviously it did not, and it still hasn't, by the way. They just don't know how to win or haven't been able to win in quite some time. Mark, great to see you. You got a coach, move on, and I know you're doing basketball too, so have a great rest of the year.
Thanks, guys. Happy holidays. Appreciate it.
Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics on the Scott Frost 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting hire. I'm excited to see what he can get going for the Knights. I think it's an incredibly interesting time just in general in college athletics and in the Big 12, and certainly with whatever West Virginia ends up deciding to do, and now Scott Frost at UCF, and there's been, dozens of coordinator changes at this point. I'm, just having fun seeing all of these changes and all these schools trying to better themselves, and I certainly feel like there's a level of excitement there with UCF, although a little bit of hesitance, much like with some WVU fans and Rich Rod, but there's an excitement there in Orlando that wasn't there the past couple years. There was an excitement when they were entering the Big 12, but I think they've kind of been an afterthought in the Big 12 and the overall landscape these last couple years. They've just sort of kind of been there. RJ Harvey's been great.
Yep.
Kobe Hudson had moments, and this guy and that guy and whatever, but in terms of rolling into the conference and competing and doing that, they've really been kind of on a second or third tier, and I think they needed a boost. I don't know that just running it back with Malzahn next year was going to in any way provide that, so he did them a great favor. That's what you can say. I think you should always forever be somewhat grateful for Gus Malzahn because he left you with no buyout, man. Like, that's still so incredible. Like, you didn't have to pay a cent, and you wanted to make the move basically anyways. Like, it was coming a year from now, but it was coming, barring some miraculous turnaround and run, and that didn't seem to be in the cards just with the temperature of the room. So they got a real blessing because they got basically what a lot of people already wanted. They got it for free, which usually never happens, and now it's leading to, for some that love Scott Frost, this epic reunion and this chapter 2 that they hope is somewhat similar to chapter 1, but it's going to be a much tougher task than chapter 1 was. But I also think you're dealing with a much different Scott Frost than you dealt with back then.
Do you guys want some breaking news?
Is it official?
Done deal according to Ian Rappaport.
All right.
So,
you sure that's the right rap sheet?
Yeah, it is. I checked.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
So Bill Belichick's the new head coach of North Carolina.
Yeah, done deal. Bill Belichick. I can't wait for that. I'm really excited to be here. And, we're just one of things, and the Tar Heels are amazing, and Lawrence Taylor. And I coached him in New York, and we talked about this, and it's been a good time. So,
yeah, that'll be epic times for North Carolina media to cover those press conferences. But wow, that's not surprising based on where the tea leaves were reading the tea leaves. Reading the tea leaves, it's not surprising based on all that was out there these past couple of days. But yeah, Bill Belichick, officially the head coach at North Carolina. Wow.
Yeah.
I never imagine putting that in the beginning of the year. Here's my top 50 crazy predictions for 2025. I guarantee you this was not on anyone's list. There's no way possible anybody could have thought up something like this. And so again, boy, we don't need to hear this summer when some OC takes an NFL job about like, well, hey, are the rules running these guys away? I think there was reason to question that at least initially, but now it's become pretty clear. Like, no, if anything, it might be attracting people like Bill Belichick now to the college game that otherwise would not be getting involved. So
I just still, it's hard for me to imagine, but nothing in anything of any part of what we are now as a country or a world or sports, college football, surprises me.
I just can't wait for him to.
I would have lost a body part on that one.
Sit in a living room and the mom's like, how are you going to take care of my baby? You're going to take him to church. He's like, well, I can go to church if he wants. I don't care.
No, he's not going to go to church because we have meetings on Sunday morning at 7 until midnight.
You do what you want. We're about a professionalism here, and we're going to teach him how to be a man or whatever you want to hear.
I remember one time at a Super Bowl back the first year that they won, they upset Kurt Warner and the Rams on the Vinatieri field goal. But that year at Radio Row, they had a lot of the media conferences that they have with coaches or whatever. It was in pretty much the same building. It was a convention center. It was a great setup in New Orleans. And I remember he was walking down the hallway. The access then was a little bit better than it is now. Now you can't get near him. And I was able to just kind of listen to him for like 10 or 15 minutes. And, yeah, that's That's going to be interesting to watch how they go. He might just kick some, like he did in the NFL.
Yeah. I know we got to take a break right here, but I do have some, because we've got some transfer portal things to run through. Garrett, would you like some breaking transfer portal news?
Give it to me.
It's actually good news depending on your perspective for LSU fans. The Nuss bus is staying parked in Baton Rouge. Garrett Nussmeier will be back.
He wasn't the problem, was he?
I think the offensive line and lack of a rushing attack were the problem.
Well, that'll hurt a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, either one of those, but both of them. I know Brian Kelly's harder than hell on him. Speaking of harder, what Belichick was with Brady.
Let's get into some transfer portal stuff.
Yeah, let's do that in the next segment. We got a lot to get to. Also at 5, Zach Gelb, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, thank you very much for your time today. If you haven't clicked like, we would appreciate it. And also, if you haven't subscribed, we'd love for you to do that too. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. I had a couple of texts I traded with Ted Teague. In fact, you'll see some new commercials with new discounts, dealer discounts coming up here on the show throughout the next couple of weeks up until the first of the year. But the Wagoneer, this is such a marvelous SUV. The Wagoneer Series 3, the Grand Wagoneer Series 3, $15,000 off or 3.9% financing for 72 months. They also have 0.9% for 72 months continuing on the Ultima. Not Ultima the car, the ultimate truck, the 2024 Ram 1500. What a name that is. That's a name brand. Sold down the inventory and only a few left, so take advantage of that. 0.9%, 72 months. Continues in the 2024 Ram 1500. And they have the Black Widow Ram 1500 crew cab sitting on 37-inch wheels. There's something there for you at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. I am driving a car as I get my pre-owned car that I bought at the dealership fixed. And, man, they've just been so patient with me. I really appreciate it with what Ted Teague and DJ and all the others do at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitsche Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitsche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitsche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitsche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
All right, a lot more to get to. We have been a lot of coaching from the start of the show. West Virginia, now North Carolina. Belichick is official, and also other jobs that are out there. But we need to get into the transfer portal. Now, I know that we're going to get to the defensive side, but there are a couple of stories that happened late yesterday. Jacob Zeno, the former Baylor and UAB quarterback, is headed to Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's a little throwback. We saw Jacob here in Waco for, about a year or two? I don't even remember at this point. It feels so long ago now. I think Cam Rising was just like a junior back then. But, no, it's been a while, and he's had his time at UAB and experienced a good level of success last year, not as much this year, dealing with injuries and whatnot. And by the end, Jalen Kitna was starting for the Blazers. You kind of see the writing on the wall, and so he becomes available. And I think, obviously, A&M can use quarterback help. So to bring a guy in like that has got great size and skills, that's an interesting pickup to me. I feel like a guy who hasn't quite fully hit his ceiling just yet and has an opportunity to do that in College Station.
Yeah, and – well, I mean, look, Marcel Reed's the starter. Jacob Zeno's the veteran backup as it stands right now. I don't think that is going to change.
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Look, if it does, then Jacob Zeno's better than I think he is. But I think.
I mean, is Marcel Reed good?
I think so.
He's good. He's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but I also don't know what all he was working with either at times this year. I mean, once they lost Le'Veon Moss in particular.
You're talking about a redshirt freshman too, and he's got dynamic athletic ability.
I don't know if he's going to. It depends on their personality about whether or not he can truly be someone that can throw the ball when you need him to, not when you fool somebody, but when you need him to.
And I'll say this, and call me a negative Nelly. But if you're a seventh-year college quarterback, I really don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't, and especially not in the SEC.
You would have started at FSU.
I still wouldn't want anything to do with them. Look, they just had a sixth-year Jamoke in there with DJU, and that didn't do him any good. So that is, look, I'll go through the list. Tell me the seventh-year guys that are good. Cam Rising, hurt. Alan Bowman, trash. Jacob Zeno, whatever.
Don't call him trash.
I mean,
he's not a very good player.
I mean,
he's not productive.
Okay, that was mean of me, but still, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's not a very good football player. But if Jacob Zeno's the quarterback for A&M next year, that is when Arch Manning's the quarterback at Texas, that's bad news. That's awful news for A&M. That's bad.
Yeah.
He should be the backup, and it's a good, solid backup to have. He has to start a couple games, and they win. That's great. But if Jacob Zeno is the guy that you're going to roll out there for 12 games and hope you're going to win the SEC with a quarterback from UAB that couldn't win the job at Baylor when there weren't really a lot of super options, I'll just tell you, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, probably not, but good for Jacob, and we'll see. They'll have a nice quality backup at worst case, and they could definitely use the quarterback depth as we saw this year, because when they lost Wegman, they had to turn to a redshirt freshman who's probably still fleshing out a lot of his game. But I'm definitely looking forward to the day where seventh years are not as status quo as they are right now. Nothing against the players. Go get your money, boo-boo. Go do what you got to do and live your life and do what's best for you. Absolutely, 100%. But as a fan of college football, I could definitely do without the seventh-year guys at this point, especially quarterbacks. So this is definitely the last run for Jacob Zeno, and I think he'll be, at worst, quality backup material for Marcel Reed in the instance that he needs to be called upon. So good. And he gets to end his career back in Texas and at an SEC program, and perhaps gets to play a little bit, so I think it's definitely a step up from what he was doing down in Birmingham by the end of his time there.
I will say this. I get nervous about players who have been in three schools. I do. You mentioned the 7 years or whatever, but I get nervous about anybody that's I wonder, it'd be great if Max Olson can help us with this, but how many players who are already in the portal are on their third team when they eventually commit to somebody else? Jacob is. Bowman, of course, has been to 3 among some others too. Also, former Baylor quarterback news, and Blake Shapen staying at Mississippi State. He will be back for another year, which also then means Michael Van Buren is now entering the transfer portal.
He's an interesting prospect. I mean, he's athletic. He's got a good arm. He played pretty well in that offense, but with Blake Shapen coming back and them going after some younger quarterbacks after that, he's not going to have a spot to play. But I would kick the tires on Michael Van Buren.
I think there'll definitely be teams interested in Michael Van Buren. I think he'll definitely have some suitors. I'm not saying he's like Cam Ward in the portal last year by any stretch, but definitely a young player with a lot of talent and showed some ability. And I think he just saw the writing on the wall because I think one of the younger guys you might be referring to, Paul, is Jackson Arnold. Would make a lot of sense in Starkville, and I think that's where a lot of people are expecting him to see because of the connection to Jeff Lebby. So We'll see, because there will be a lot of schools that are going to obviously be ringing his phone and hitting his DMs, and you don't know when it comes down to money and whatnot. But I think Jackson Arnold and Mississippi State makes a lot of sense. You've got Chapin, who I think would be a quality backup. But if they don't land Arnold, then maybe he is the starter. I've got to tell you, I'm a big fan of Blake Chapin, the person, but at this point, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
I've seen enough. I don't know that I would be all that excited about this. I hate that his season got cut short last year. It just bad luck and just unfortunate timing that he gets this opportunity and then he gets hurt. So I'm glad that he's getting a chance to kind of get one more run at it, but this is definitely the one more, and that's it for you, pal. Like, this is it. So, another quarterback who's been around a long time. But I think Van Buren will be really interesting, and then obviously does Levy and company land a guy like a Jackson Arnold. That'll be very fascinating to see where he ends up. And if it's in Starkville, then I don't know what that means for Blake, but I'm glad that he's getting a chance to try and end it on his own terms, but hopefully he can this year because that's his last chance.
I want to get to the defensive rotation because we do have Zach Gelb a little bit into the 5 o'clock hour, but Baylor sure has had a lot of quarterbacks who have played a long time. Zeno, Chapin, and let's not forget Charlie Brewer.
Let's not forget Gary Bohannon.
Gary Bohannon, who's
like
now,
all those guys I think have played 6 years at this point. And I'm not even cracking a joke. Like, I think they've all played at least 6 years. And so Sawyer Robertson might graduate by the time like Bohannon and Zeno and all of these guys graduate, which would be kind of crazy. But they've had a lot of guys who have hit the portal and have stuck around. And even in some cases, Bohannon's bounced twice. He went from
Baylor
USF to BYU
USF
this
to
past
BYU.
year.
Yep.
Obviously didn't get past Retzlaff, and we saw the reasoning why there. But Chapin couldn't stay healthy. Zeno now on his third school at A&M, and who was the other one?
Brewer.
Well, yeah, but
he was at Liberty?
No, he was Utah, and then
before
Liberty,
that.
and then Utah. Yeah, whatever the order was. But either way, that ended also kind of like him and Chapin's careers. Like really, they looked alike when they were out there.
The same damn number.
They were basically the same player in a lot of ways.
That too.
They've been on 3 schools now, or no, just 2 for Chapin, but just the injuries piling up for them have derailed what would otherwise have been different careers.
All right, let's get to this. I don't think we're going to have time for the Kenny Dillingham quote. If we do, we'll do it later in the 5 o'clock hour. But Paul has his kind of the defensive transfer portal rotation to kind of go over here.
Well, there's a couple we didn't get to.
Yeah.
Darian Mensah to Duke.
The quarterback from Tulane to Duke. And Malik
and
Murphy.
Malik Murphy's in the portal, so we don't know where he's going yet. And Connor Wigman, according to On3, it looks like he's headed to Houston for Willie Fritz. Would be a huge get as he goes back home. He's a Cypress, one of the Cypress high schools. Which one?
There's a million of
them. Bridgeland, Cypress, Cy Bridgeland High School there. Also a note, because he's not going to be on the DB list when we get to this, on the transfer portal thing, Takario Davis from Arizona officially
He'll
in the
end
portal.
up at Texas.
Yeah, they've lost him and Jacob Manu. Those are 2 huge losses.
And Gunnar Maldonado, their safety.
I almost forgot about. Yeah, I mean that's 3 of their best players right there on last year's team that have all entered the transfer portal. So that's not great for Brent Brennan. But yeah, real quickly on the quarterbacks. I mean, we also should have mentioned Preston Stone.
Yeah,
so I should have let it breathe a little. But yeah, he's going to be in the portal, or he's in the portal now. Van Buren in the portal, as we mentioned. Mensah makes that decision to Duke. But we kind of talked about that with Taylor, kind of how that worked out. So I think Mensah to Duke's really interesting pickup for Manny Diaz. Wegman to Houston makes a lot of sense, man. Like, I think for Houston, that'd be a great pickup. I think that'd be excellent for them to get Connor Wegman. So if that, in fact, continues to trend that way, then I think that's exciting news for Cougs fans. We'll see on Stone, though. Like, I mean, his stock fell so much this past season, getting beat out by Kevin Jennings and didn't play well early on, and then Jennings just took that job and obviously ran with it all the way to the ACC title game in the playoffs. So there was no question by the end of their decision-making.
You know what would be a good one for him, because they don't ask a lot of athleticism out of their quarterback, is like Iowa.
Yeah,
run the ball.
Yeah.
Sammy, he's got a great arm. He's an accomplished enough passer to where I think he'd be an upgrade over Cade McNamara for them, but also in a place where he's not going to be expected to be the reason that they win every game.
By the way, Carter Carrells, who covers A&M, Max Johnson, where's he at? North Carolina?
Yeah.
Has now played for Ed Orgeron, Jimbo Fisher, Mac Brown, and about to be Bill Belichick if he remains with him. That's pretty good.
He needs to stay healthy and Probably needs to give up football, honestly, but I don't know. That's a crazy resume. I mean, that's a crazy little tidbit on his profile. He played for all those guys. That's pretty impressive.
Everybody's won a national title and won 6 Super Bowls.
And his father, Brad Johnson, played for Bobby Bowden in college.
FSU.
And then, if you list off the John Grudens and Tony Dungy's and whoever else he played for in the NFL, they got a lot of coaches in that family between the quarterbacks.
Yeah, they do. All right, Paul, we have Zach around the corner, but go ahead and do your defensive transfer portal.
Why don't we do it at 5:25 afterwards? So I don't have to drive so fast through it.
Yeah, we had a guest at 5:25 that we've moved back a little bit because of timing, so we can do that. Coming up, Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network. He will join us. There is news that already before they've even played a game in the college football playoff that there's already the thought about going to 14 or 16. I just wish we'd all slow down for just a little bit, and that's not an old man asking you to get off my lawn. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. State-of-the-art imaging machine inside their building. I've been in it. I've been in the building a handful of times, and I've also been inside of their MRI machine. And every single time, the experience has been fantastic. And I can't say that about other MRI experiences that I've had throughout my life. I have a tendency to get claustrophobic, and so I have been spooked before about being a part of an MRI machine. But they have the techs and the specialists. They make you feel so comfortable. Like, for example, I know this, I put a pair of headsets on, and I have them up as high as I can get them, whether it's going to be Journey, Metallica, or Elton John. And they just always have made me feel comfortable about being inside the machine. That's not always been the case. And if you want something that is hurting looked at, if your doctor needs better evidence of what's hurting you, that's what they can do at IdealMRI.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at IdealMRI.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
The guy to drink a beer with is Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network. Appreciate him. He's with us on most every Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. Zach, great setup at where you are, where you do your broadcast every afternoon. So, Bill Belichick in college football.
Crazy. Still can't believe it. Even though for the last day or two, I thought it was going to happen because of how late in the process UNC was. And if it wasn't Bill, then where were they going to go with John Sumrall saying he's going to stay at Tulane. There just wasn't a name that was out there. So I thought UNC, since Bill was interested, had no choice but to hire him. And it's going to be fascinating to see how it's going to go. The floor is bowl eligibility. Like, they'll be bowl eligible with just the coaching of Bill Belichick. The ceiling, I could see him getting maybe down the road. I know it's only a 3-year deal, and we'll see what the roster looks like and all the NIL money that gets increased. An ACC championship game. And I'm not going to sit there and say that they're going to win it necessarily. Let's, see, but it's not crazy to suggest that Bill could go have success in college. Anyone thinking how to win a national championship, please. No one in the ACC is winning a national championship, so let's stop with that.
Well, not anytime, probably soon, Zach, given the state of all of them. But North Carolina's not won the ACC since the early 80s. I mean, so this is a football program that has been an abject failure for 40 years, for a generation or more. And I don't know if it'll work out, but it's a huge swing, so nothing else has. Might as well do something different.
And also, hey, Larry Fedora had a little early success. I think he had like a 10 or 11 win season. Then obviously it got real ugly. You call back Mac Brown. Mac Brown takes the job. He restored them to a stable spot where they're winning 6 to 8 games every year. Bill will walk in. He'll win his 7 games right away, I would imagine. Maybe north of that. Let's see what the roster looks like. And here's something I will say. There's going to be a lot of people, and it's amazing because I heard this on ESPN. And you would think that guys like Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp, who I like a lot, that they would be able to make this point. I heard them the other day talk about, Bill's not going to be like, I can't imagine Bill walking into a living room. Well, Deion Sanders, I know he has a great personality. He's not in kids' living rooms. They come to him, right? So you'll have others do, I don't want to say your dirty work, but that's basically what it is. They'll do the tough work. They'll do the recruiting. And when a kid wants to take a visit, they'll go and they'll meet with Bill Belichick in his office, just like how the kids in Colorado go meet with Coach Prime. But I was talking to Channing Crowder earlier today. And Channing Crowder, I said to him, former players are going to want their sons to play for Bill Belichick because they're going to get professional coaching and they're going to get ready for the NFL. And that's the pitch. Hey, you want to go play in the NFL? Well, I'm a 6-time Super Bowl champion. I'm Bill Belichick. Kiss the rings. I'm one of the greatest coaches of all time. My coaching may not be for everybody. I'm going to be tough on you, but you're going to be in the NFL. And I have a lot of contacts in the NFL because I was the standard for 20 years. And if that's what you want and you truly want that, as long as there's NIL money there, I don't see why you would be running away from that situation just because Bill's never coached in college before.
Zach, this isn't black and white, or it doesn't have an exact answer. I was just kind of kicking this around in my head as we were seeing all these coaching changes. You just see a Gus Malzahn step down out of a head coaching position. Now, granted, time was wearing out on him in Orlando anyways, but just he decided, I'm a football coach. I don't want to be doing all this other nonsense that we have to do nowadays. And I remember a conversation after a couple of big-time assistants left for the NFL of man, are they running guys off now? Do you think maybe college football is running off the traditional guys in some ways or becoming less desirable, but also now opening up its arms to others that might not otherwise have been interested in college football because now you can go in the portal and you can put things together a lot quicker than just sitting down talking to mom and pop like the good old days?
I think you're onto something. Chip Kelly, I know that it seemed like he was on the end and the outs of UCLA for all those years, and he kept on winning 7 or 8 games. He left the head coaching job to go be an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. We saw Hafley say, I'm done as a head coach at BC. I'm going to go be the DC of the Green Bay Packers. So I think just with the money structure that it is now, where it is NIL, it allows for a true CEO of the program. And you guys know this. There's a lot of companies that have a CEO that their CEO, he's doing a lot of the work, but he's not doing the toughest work, and the recruiting is the toughest work. But if it comes down to, for a lot of these kids, what's the dollar amount? I don't think Bill Belichick, to get a kid to go to UNC, needs to be in their living room. I just think he has to eventually meet with them at one time. And as long as the Benjamins are there, that's what a lot of these kids just care about. And I don't fault kids for that, because they could benefit off their name, image, and likeness.
Did Deion's 2 years at Colorado influence anyone else who might do what he did or what Belichick's going to do, or am I giving him too much credit?
I think what the Coach Prime kind of last 2 years shows us is unconventional for these schools that are not Alabama, right? They're not your big time programs, Ohio State, Georgia, whatever the big school, Texas, you guys all know the big schools. If you want to be relevant and you want to have a chance to catch lightning in the bottle, you could do something like that. And I said with Coach Prime when he was at Jackson State, if I was Auburn, I would have hired him. I wanted to see Coach Prime go to the SEC. So Boulder, right? We haven't talked about them for college football outside of how much they've just been terrible for 20 years. Now all we do is talk about them because you have a big name, relevant coach who the bar was set so low and he exceeded expectations. Now, Bill doesn't have the personality of Coach Prime, but we know the name of Bill Belichick, the NFL legend, the royalty that he is. And now he goes to college where he'll be an old school coach, as he's always been, just like how Deion's an old school coach. He'll be the CEO of the program. He's going to coach those kids like they've never been coached before. And he'll have other guys figure out, right, the recruiting, the main bulk work of it in the transfer portal. So, yeah, I think it's fair to, I'm not saying directly Bill's doing this because Deion did it, but it has allowed a school like UNC to say, hey, we don't need a college football lifer or someone that, I know Deion was coaching for a few years in college. I just don't think you need to do that necessarily. I think you could go outside the box.
I for one, think he has a ton of personality because he's got a 24-year-old girlfriend. So something's going on there.
Which let me tell you this. I think she's on the hot seat. Bill could be going to these sorority parties.
Co-ed carousel.
I'm just saying, imagine Belichick. Toga. Be interesting.
Yeah, look, hey, this is, not loyal. You don't have to be loyal like you did to Matt Patricia. Like this.
You know what? That's when it's a disaster. I would imagine Patricia's doing something. Yeah. But if he's coaching the offensive side of the ball, that's when you're a recruit. You say, Bill, what drugs are you doing? Come on.
Zach, what do you think about the opening at West Virginia and where they could go, which could be at any second now? It appears they might have somebody that they've picked, but do you like going back home again with Rich Rodriguez, or do they need to be a little bit more today?
I think that's a program that could be like a sleeping giant, man, especially with the McAfee influence and the McAfee connection. That's a program that could get a lot of national play. You're in the Big 12, right? There's no team. We just saw Arizona State, right? We're in the Big 12. They were picked dead last before the season started. So I do think West Virginia could be a really fun job that will have a lot of money if you get a rock star kind of guy. I'm fine with Rich Rod. I would have no problem.
Pete Thamel is saying right now that it's heading that way.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah, and Brian Hartline I saw interviewed, which I think would be a fine hire, and that would be damaging to Ohio State. So I have no problem. I saw the Rich Rod stuff last week. I have no problem if it ends up being Rich Rod.
Zach, Phil Snow, and Matt Rule because of the connections, and Phil was in our studio one time for a wonderful sit-down interview.
The Godfather.
Yes. Is this a desperation move by Matt to bring back the fellas? I know Phil Snow knows football, but what does this do for them?
So I was a little surprised Tony White left just because, and I don't know everything that happened, but the way that Tony White was being talked about last year, he could basically be a head coach. So Norvell needed help at Florida State. Terrence Knighton, I think, is a big loss as well. But Phil Snow is Matt's confidant, right? That's the guy he trusts the most. So, that's the reason why, Matt ended up going to Baylor and he didn't end up going to Oregon because, from what I was told, Phil Snow basically told him, you got to go on a plane to recruit everywhere in Oregon. In Baylor, you just, get in your car and you drive. And they thought that was more appealing. So, that was part of the decision-making process. I have, if Matt trusts Phil Snow, I got no problem with it. But, hey, Dana Holgorsen, the fact that they were able to retain him, I thought that was big as well because the offense did look better with him. So I think they'll be fine. It all comes down to Raiola, and they got to get more talent around Raiola. So I'm not freaking out over the coaching selections and stuff like that. Matt wants to bring back Phil Snow. Hey, no problem with that whatsoever. The guy's a really damn good football coach.
All right, so the playoff, the standings released, of course, on Sunday early afternoon. What did they get right? What did they get wrong? Or just your overall feedback. It's been 4 days or 3 days.
Yeah, it's all hypocritical. Let's be real. Like, I'm about to tell you, I'm happy that they were at least consistent in terms of they didn't reward teams that weren't in the conference championship games, and then they didn't take away from teams that lost their conference championship games. So even with that being said, do I think Texas, do I think Penn State are true 5 and 6 seeds? I don't. I think, and I don't even love Ohio State. They could lose to Tennessee, but I think Ohio State is better than Penn State. Heck, they beat them this year. So I look at Texas, I look at Penn State. I don't think there's any two coaches under more pressure just in terms of the matchups than Sark and then James Franklin. If they're not in the semifinal, man, that's an embarrassment. And hey, I think Arizona State or Boise State, one of those schools are going to pick off either Texas or Penn State, and one of those schools will get into the semifinal and the Final Four. But those are some of my first reactions. Alabama, do I think Alabama would beat SMU? Yes. I also thought Alabama would beat South Carolina. I also thought Alabama would beat Oklahoma. In a 12-team playoff, I said this to you guys last week, I don't think anyone gets screwed. Alabama didn't do enough to clearly state that they belong in the college football playoff. You could think Bama's better than SMU, and so do I, but it doesn't mean Alabama deserved to get in, and I was fine pretty much for the most part with the 12 teams that the committee ended up picking.
Yeah, you got to earn it a little bit. I mean, you can't just claim birthright status. I know that you are, president of the Ryan Day fan club, and that after you leave us, you're going to get on the subway and go to the New York chapter of it. That all being said, if he loses this game to Tennessee at home in the playoff, would you want to be him for the next 12 months?
I wouldn't want to beat him before.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. So Friday, I'm doing Army-Navy Radio Row. So we're doing our show live. USAA puts on a tremendous event. I know Urban Meyer is going to be doing his podcast. I want to get Urban Meyer on the show. I'm going to try to get him on the show because I saw Urban Meyer put out a statement the other week that he's done coaching. He's not interested. I know his name's been attached to the Ohio State job, and he believes in Ohio State. I just want to tell Urban Meyer on the show this. Urban, I saw your statement. I respect your statement, but you're telling me that in this hypothetical world, if Ohio State got rid of Ryan Day and they called you up and begged you to come back, you're not going back to Ohio State? For a guy that's addicted to coaching, a football lifer, I get it. The NIL could be a headache. The transfer portal could be a headache. You're telling me with how it ended in Jacksonville, Urban Meyer wouldn't take the Ohio State job. So I hope I get that opportunity to, say that to him coming up on Friday. We'll see if he ends up coming up on the show.
And I'm sure he'll be totally honest with you.
Yeah, he's
it's just the picture of honesty.
I don't know if you watched the end of the Cowboys game, which of course is always a glorious thing. Sometimes like the fourth quarter against Washington was bizarre. They've been in those situations before with Leon Lett, which was a famous snow game against the Dolphins, but that was a Super Bowl team. Can you imagine being a fan of the Cowboys and they take you and they just tease you constantly, and then there's that play at the end of that game?
Yeah, so I understand it was terrible, and it can't happen, but the Cowboys season's already over. So I at least appreciate how tough those guys were playing, and Micah Parsons, who sometimes says some stupid things, I at least appreciated his emotion, because for a star like that, it's easy to start making business decisions and not care. He's caring, and he's wanted to win this game like it was their Super Bowl, and they've been out of it. And this is a bad Bengals team as well, because their defense can't stop anybody. So I was fine with the effort. Just at the end of the game, it's one of those things. We've seen so many ways teams lose games this year where they invent new ways how to lose them. And it's impressive. Like, look, every time Kansas City wins this year, it feels like there's some wild ending, whether it was the division doink, as Tirico said, what happened with the Raiders a few weeks ago with the botched snap, the field goal that got blocked up against the Broncos. There's been a lot of sloppy NFL ball this year, but there's been a lot of craziness at the end of these games.
Kansas City drives me crazy watching them because I know what the ending's going to be.
They're going to win.
They're going to win.
The moment the Chargers hit that field goal, I said this is over.
Yeah,
touchdowns, not field goals. Like, I know that sometimes you got to kick the field goal. Like,
they had to kick it there.
You had to kick the field goal there. But, I mean, I know Jim Harbaugh knew this. As soon as he kicked it, he was like, crap.
Yeah.
But even so, all you had to do was only allow a field goal.
Yeah.
Or sorry. Yeah. No, all they had to do was allow a field goal. And at that moment, it's like the fourth down play to get them close, or the third down play to get them closer. Because no, they had the game-winning field goal. So you couldn't allow a field goal, but how they made it easier for them to then bleed the clock at the end of the game. And it's like, you had Mahomes basically there and you couldn't tackle him. And he throws a first down to this is the Patriots. I'm a Patriot fan. 20 years, this is what I saw. And the Patriots had cleaner products, but they had some sloppy games that they won, and the other team just urinated on themselves at the end of the game. That's what happens.
Yeah, and Mahomes always has a 10 or 12-yard scramble in a final drive, and he had one in that final drive. I was watching the game. I was at an airport in Tampa. And I said, there it is. There he goes. They're gonna win the game. Zach, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. As always, thanks for your time.
You got it, guys. Thanks. Be well.
Infinity Sports Radio Network talk show host Zach Gelb with us on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour.
So just kind of rounding back on a couple of things. Couple of quarterback decisions have been made. Not super high profile, but one of them definitely of interest to us. And there is also, yes, all of the smoke is now emanating from Morgantown, and it appears that Rich Rodriguez is going to burst through that cloud at any moment now. So that's where all signs are pointing, is that Rich Rodriguez will be back at West Virginia head coach, which means that the two Big 12 head coach openings both go back to previous head coaches, which I don't know if that's ever happened before. But it's going to be awesome when Sonny Dykes barely makes a bowl and Gary Patterson's back in Fort Worth, and we're just going to continue this trend on down the line potentially. No, I think it's probably just an outlier, but if it's successful, then maybe more schools are like, you know what, maybe we can go back again. I don't know, but that does look like it's all official as far as West Virginia goes, but we still need word from the school itself.
Right. Meanwhile, all the national guys are starting to post that, like you said. Chris Vanini, Bruce Feldman, among some others.
Yeah. So I guess they're all getting the same text now. But, yeah, that looks to be the case. And so we'll see if that's not officially official here in the next 30 minutes. But those pro-Rodriguez, bring Rich Rod back, folks, in the West Virginia fan base. Start popping champagne bottles, because it appears you're going to get your way. Meanwhile, not one of the more high-profile quarterbacks, but a guy who did cross our paths a couple years back, Zach Pyron, backup quarterback at Georgia Tech. He has committed to Minnesota, so he's going to go play for the Golden Gophers. Yeah, he's going to go from Georgia Tech to Minnesota. So former four-star player, played a little bit there for Georgia Tech, but obviously that's Haynes King's team right now. So there's a Minnesota picking up a QB. And then speaking of officially official, Devin Dampier, New Mexico quarterback, is headed to Utah.
Home run for them. Following his offensive coordinator and his quarterback coach, I believe, at Coy Detmer, which is going there, I believe, too. And that's who was at New Mexico last year with Bronco Mendenhall. And now they're all on their way to Utah. I think this is... I mean, he's got proven skins on the wall, albeit in a league that's lower, but he is dynamic, dual threat quarterback, good arm, runs, going to do really well in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think he's got some polishing to do in the passing game. Not the best numbers. I mean, threw for a lot of yards, but terrible touchdown to interception ratio. That's got to improve just to win more games at the Big 12. But beyond that, I mean, very much a real dual threat quarterback who can run and hurt you and make some big plays. And you may remember him giving Arizona all sorts of hell earlier this year in a game they eventually pulled away and won big, but he was fun to watch in that one. So, yeah, dynamic guy, definitely provides a splash for a quarterback room that needed it with the rising stuff, and then now transfers the likes of who am I missing, the backup?
Isaac Wilson.
Yeah, Isaac Wilson. Thank you, Garrett. Isaac Wilson hitting the transfer portal. So they needed to spruce that up with some new coaches, and they'll have that with Devin Dampier. So, yeah, he's officially headed to Salt Lake City, and that's a nice pickup for the Utes.
Yeah, you mentioned him, Paul. I think a day or two ago. I was just watching highlights on the transfer portal. Remember Javion Sunday?
Yeah, remember him well.
Highly recruited player. Went to the University of Washington. He's in the portal like for the second or third time. He's been playing at Abilene Christian, and he's now in the portal. I just wanted to throw that out there. Most everybody coast to coast doesn't know him, but he was a great prospect.
Wherever he winds up, if he goes back up a level, I mean, I think he has the stopwatch numbers to do that. But sometimes it's not just about that. I mean, there's a lot of guys.
You don't go from Washington to Abilene Christian.
No, and I'm not sure there wasn't a stop between that. But he is, he's one of those 5-6 year guys. So the treads are also a little bit worn out.
I will tell you, the first time I saw him I'd seen a ton of highlights on the news, but I remember seeing him in person for the first time, like going over there on signing day, and. I was like, that's Javion Sunday and not like some other guy that's here to
Yeah, he looked the part. I mean, he looked the part. He looked the part. He played the part. Obviously, Washington in the middle of that national championship run. I mean, that staff, that was who plucked him away from Texas, the state of Texas, and brought him all the way up there. I don't know what all happened after that really, but definitely a player and a prospect with a lot of upside. So good luck to him on – maybe, I don't know, if Baylor needs some secondary help. He got an extra scholarship, bring him back home. I don't know if that he's what they're looking for or not. But, yeah, best of luck to him.
All right, what do we have coming up? We got the transfer portal information on defense. I've got an NIL note that came out today from a reporter about who spent the most money or who raised the most NIL money, and it's not going to surprise you. There's one name or two in there that will surprise you. We'll have that too. 365 Sports back in just a moment. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco, where you can get a stocking stuffer, a gift card, or membership for a year or 3 months, whatever amount of time you want to buy. It's a great stocking stuffer. Also, they're about to have a lot of different tournaments there in the month of December, including pickleball, which, of course, is a huge deal. And they have pickleball courts available, too, along with a world-class tennis facility. It's a great stocking stuffer. Memberships available, gift cards, too, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports as we head to the last part of this 5 o'clock hour. Just around the corner, we also will have Paul Catalina's top 5. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, everybody here today with our studio just a little bit off of I-35 in Waco. Paul Catalina yesterday with a list of the offensive transfer portal, which can change at any time. And we've mentioned some of that, but now the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, change at any time. So a couple hours ago I did this, and then, Tacario Davis jumped in. So, kind of screwed up my DB graphic here.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And as we just ran down, some quarterbacks have made some decisions as well. So, yeah, it's never a perfect time to talk transfer portal when it's wide open and people are just running in and out of it. But Arizona, boy, oh boy, you talk about an offseason where it's just you're not feeling like UCF fans and West Virginia fans are right now, where they're all pumped up about, hey, like this brand new, even though it's another similar era to what they've had before, but they've got that fun offseason mojo going on. Arizona's in the, when will this nightmare end portion of their 2024 into 2025 season right now.
The only good news they've gotten is Noah Fafita's dad saying he loves it in Tucson.
And honestly, if you want to really parse through those words, doesn't mean that he's 100% back, but it's 99%.
But he could love it. He could love it in Columbia, Missouri, or Miami, Florida, or something else too, if the right people call. So, let's dive into this. Let's start with the defensive line. Here are the best guys available. This is according to 24/7 Sports. Williams Nwaneri from Mizzou, 6'7", 255. James Williams from Nebraska is visiting FSU following Tony White there. Smokey, do you have any feelings on him as an overall talent?
He was a walk-on. I think that's number 90. And he was a walk-on and made some plays for them. Pretty interesting story that a walk-on who makes productive plays, and he kind of slowed down, maybe ran out of gas or whatever, obviously on a very productive defense. But I think he was a walk-on at Nebraska and then started to play. Really nice story, but tall, rangy guy.
To that end, someone I will throw in here, a former 5-star recruit who is now on his third school, will be Marvin Jones Jr., who has left FSU.
I thought you were talking about the next guy.
No. That'll lead into that. Marvin Jones Jr. had 4 sacks for the Seminoles this year. He never really broke the rotation at Georgia. He's leaving the legacy program, probably because Tony White is going to run the 3-3-5, and that's not the defense that Marvin Jones probably needs to be in. And, there's a house cleaning going on there, and I don't think anybody's going to be missed at all. I would love to see him finish his career there just because his dad was a legend at FSU. But he's another one who jumped in after I did this graphic. Bear Alexander on his third school. Dude loves getting recruited. He loves getting recruited. He doesn't particularly love producing. And everybody, loves his ability, but at some point you just got to say, come on, man, just stick it out somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't pan out at USC. You didn't pan out at Georgia. That's fine. Didn't pan out at USC. Okay, but when you don't pan out at both those places, you got to raise an eyebrow, right? I mean,
he was in the rotation at USC and playing okay.
Yeah,
but you gotta keep playing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sitting somewhere and establishing yourself and making a career out of it, yeah, the bouncing around just makes you raise your eyebrow and not quite having fully lived up to his potential. And Guy has some embarrassing moments along the way. But, yeah, I mean, he's obviously still a big-time athlete with great size and all the other skills that made him the big-time prospect that he was. So somebody out there and multiple people out there will be interested to get whatever drops they can squeeze out of him talent-wise. But I think he is one of those players that you see now and you just roll your eyes. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, Barrett. It's like Cam Rising. You know what I mean? You're just like, all right, dude, cool, whatever. Let's move on. But, yeah, I'm interested to see where he goes, but I'm just interested in seeing where he goes, not so much how he plays.
Give me the snooze button on that one.
Yeah.
Even if he ends up with a school hey, by the way, Williams was a preferred walk-on out of JUCO, out of Iowa. He had 5.5 tackles for losses and 5 sacks. He was very active, but then kind of slowed down. I wanted to update him on that walk-on.
Yeah, and I think the part of that for Tony White, you're going to bring in some guys that know, you've got to plant some plants that have already grown a little bit, so you can, because they're really 22 starters. FSU is starting from scratch. There's not a whole lot that you can say this would definitely have to be part of our future. You really don't know at 2-10. Keyshawn Silver from Kentucky, interesting player, a big guy, 6'4", 336 along the defensive line, a tackle. They lose Deion Walker to the draft, and him. We'll see. Deion Walker is going to be a first-round pick. More than likely, he's a super stud. Cameron Olds, really interesting name out of Kent State. That 6'4", 245, had a lot of sacks. He's on the way up. Will Helt from Purdue, 6'6", 265, visiting Texas A&M. I wonder if Nick Scorton called him up and said, listen, buddy, I'm leaving. Why don't you come down here and take my spot? You'll love this. It's my hometown. It's warm.
Yeah, but I love coaching. I love Coach Barry Odom now at Purdue.
Yeah, I know.
I think they've got a couple big-time of the top-ranked guys in the portal on defense.
We got a defensive back coming up in
with
a second.
Barry Odom there, like maybe he can convince those guys, or maybe he doesn't care. He's going to get his own guys anyways. But we didn't talk about Barry Odom. I think that was an excellent hire for Purdue. That, I know that became official yesterday. We didn't get to it because he got introduced towards the end of the show, but that job opened and closed pretty quickly, and they definitely whiffed on Ryan Walters, but I think they really got a good one in Barry Odom here. He was bound to move up again, and the timing seemed right. And he'll have the Big Ten, funds at his disposal to work with. I just hate it for the Vegas folks because we do have some, UNLV fans that we've accumulated over the years, and it's just really hard for that program, man. You thought the realignment was maybe going to fall your way not once but a couple times now, and then the Pac opens up. The Pac's like, we're going to not only live, but we're going to open our arms to all the schools we used to snub our noses at, and they decide to not join it.
Yeah.
And now Barry Odom's leaving, and it's just, man, they had a great year, though. They've had a great year. That's awesome, but it just sucks that it's going to turn the corner again because now you're going to have to go get a brand-new coach.
I have to admit something on a story about Barry Odom. So he was at UNLV, and initially it looked like he was going to fight off going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I had sent their SID a text about having him join the show because it looked like he was going to stay at UNLV. We've had him on twice this year. And by the time the SID got to the text message, he had already taken the job at Purdue. He goes, you do know now he's the coach at Purdue.
Well,
so
we told you yesterday, you were like, what about Barry Odom? He's staying? I'm like, no. That flipped pretty quickly, but good for Purdue. We all like.
Yeah, I think
Barry
that's a really good hire. And so he's got some guys he's got to pull out of the portal, or maybe not. But get back to it, Paul.
Okay, Deshaun Womack from LSU, 6'5", 260. Garrett, do you care?
I do not, but I would like to say that LSU is in the hunt of getting Olds and Helt to come there.
Yeah. So there you go. So they swap out guys who are more productive. Womack is maybe more on potential. Correct. He's in the Bear Alexander group. All right, let's jump into some defensive backs. Julian Humphrey, 10-game starter for Georgia this past year, is out there in the portal. Not sure what prompted that, but started 10 games, missed 2 because of injury, and decided he was going to go in the portal before the SEC title game. So these things happen, but I wouldn't call him a star by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a good player, an effective player, and a 10-game starter for the SEC champs. So not someone that you would sneeze at. Does he wind up at a school on the level of Georgia, or does he wind up at like a Vanderbilt, or you'll see where I have him transfer portal fitted to LSU actually in one of the top 5s, because I think he's the kind of veteran that can help them out while not being the Patrick Peterson or Honey Badger level star that they're used to, but they just need some consistency there. So I think Julian Humphrey can give them that. Here's your other Purdue guy, Craig Thieneman from Purdue, a safety, real bricklayer of a guy. He's going to have a ton of suitors. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can see them, but one at the bottom here, I wanted to the one at the very end. North Dakota State, Cole Wisniewski. Smokey, this guy has Big Ten, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa written all over him the way he plays. And I am sure,
Is he related to Steve Wisniewski? Is there former? How do you spell it?
Maybe it's. I'm not sure about the. Yeah,
looks like it is.
Yeah.
Former Penn State Raiders offensive lineman. I don't know if
this kid is from Wisconsin, so I don't know if Steve Wisniewski, moved to Wisconsin or whatever, or if he's a nephew or if he's not related at all. I'm sure there's tons of Wisniewskis in Wisconsin, but. He is one that's very interesting. He had an injury this year, took a redshirt year because of it, and I think he's going to be very, very interesting. Also, if I am West Virginia and I'm wondering about getting a safety in the transfer portal to follow my new old head coach, Zechariah Poyser out of Jack State in the portal. He's on the list at number 4 here. So wouldn't be surprised to see him follow his head coach into Morgantown. And let's get to linebackers. This position a little bit less full than the others. There's not, of course, this is changing. The name you might recognize here is Josiah Trotter.
What?
Trotter.
What?
Trotter.
Sure. Garrett, you have a filthy mind. And everybody in the chat room, I can't wait to go see what they're thinking.
Trotter. Josiah Trotter, son of Jeremiah Sr., brother of Jeremiah Jr. He is visiting Washington, and so he's going across the country. Really not what I thought was kind of in the cards for him. He's an interesting one. Sione Hala from Boston College is a guy who I watched a couple times this year make a ton of tackles, and one that's already committed, Bengali Kamara, on his way to Kansas to play for Lance Leipold out of South Carolina. But the top-ranked one, Amari Campbell from North Carolina. This is not a position where you're going to find a lot because defenses have changed in the sense that linebackers aren't really the same anymore. But this is probably, of the premier positions, the ones that you look at, linebacker's the hardest one to find nowadays.
Yeah, Campbell entered the transfer portal a couple days ago, so I don't know. The Bill Belichick stuff was pretty out there at that point, so I don't know if that means that he wasn't interested either way or if Belichick can possibly pry him back. And maybe Belichick won't want to. Maybe he'll see, like, I know you entered the portal, go ahead and that's another spot for me to fill up. But, yeah, he's the highest-rated guy at this point, and got to keep in mind as well, the real floodgates open after the bowl games when you get some of these guys who will have played their final games. I know it all gets going right now, but I think that we'll obviously see a lot more additions. Is curious, so I looked up the Julian Humphrey thing because I remember reading something about him the other day, and it was the fact that, he had decided to, sit out right here at this moment where they're about to enter the playoff, and didn't seem to be a great logical explanation. No, like, hey, mom's sick, I got to go closer to home, or playing time or anything like that. So, yeah, not sure there, but I know he is visiting A&M apparently. So there's one spot. You said he'd make sense in the SEC. Well, there's a spot maybe he would make sense right there in the SEC.
So his dad was a great player with the Eagles, and he's an SFA grad. You're talking about Trotter, right?
No, I was talking about Julian Humphrey.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Craig. I thought you were talking about Humphrey. I mean, Trotter. Trotter's dad
No, I was talking about Twatter.
Well, it's a combination of Humphrey and Trotter.
Yeah.
But his brothers with the Eagles, where his dad played, and now he's in the transfer portal in West Virginia. That's Josiah. It's a big loss for West Virginia.
Yeah, how old do you feel that Jeremiah Trotter has multiple kids in the pros nowadays, or in college?
I feel quite old. Like I watched Jeremiah Trotter terrorize the Cowboys for years.
Yeah, no,
for two different teams.
We went to high school. Just curious. Billy Sims, same place. Hooks.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and clearly didn't come back. He sent his kids off to the East Coast. So,
well, he
not
played
helping
with Philadelphia.
not helping his native state very much.
I mean,
I think he went up to Philly and kind of just stayed there.
Yeah. Not like Bobby Taylor, who was nice enough to come back.
Yeah,
and contribute a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
All guys who, again, Bobby Taylor, been on the show many times. I know he's a very good friend of yours. And we saw him at the Super Bowl in Tampa, and it was the first time I think I'd gotten to talk to him at length, not in an interview setting. And I almost had, he was so nice to me, I almost had Aaron Boone vibes.
Oh, yeah.
But since the Eagles had not, he didn't win a Super Bowl because of that, I think maybe I wasn't as bitter.
Yeah, he was a great, imagine a town the size of Hooks with Jeremiah Trotter and Billy Sims. Sims, of course, I don't think he ever did. He never made it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame because knee injuries. I think it knocked him out. He was one of those that didn't play long enough. All right,
Boomer. That's Billy Sims right there.
He was
at the Heisman ceremony every year.
Yep, and he and Johnny Rodgers are the ones that always are Rozier are the loudest in at that Heisman Trophy ceremony, which is coming up, of course, on Saturday. You want to do the NIL accumulation number? This came out today. Indiana Look at the names of the schools on that list who raised the most collective funding. Not a surprise that anybody that's up among the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever, all the way down. And then you see Indiana right there, $13 million, which is between Penn State and Michigan State. Hell of a job by Kurt Cignetti in Indiana to get what they did. Of course, they had a ton of transfers in from James Madison and had a really good year. They're not done with being a part of the college football playoff. But look at the ones at the top, huh? Garrett, LSU is third. What is their excuse?
Coaching. Right. Maybe use that for a buyout. I don't know.
And Texas at the top, 22, and then Ohio State and LSU. That's a ton of money that they were able to raise. Kenny Dillingham. Here's a quote from the Arizona State coach on the transfer portal. So I saw him, a player entered the portal in the last day or two, and then he would tweet about what a great player and a good person he was. And now, you think, why? He's leaving you. And he did and said what a lot of people said about when the transfer portal became a thing when it comes to coaches. College sports is supposed to help the kids. That's still the root of what's supposed to be. Maybe this isn't your dream school. Why would I be mad at a kid for wanting to do what's best for him? Coaches do it all the time. I've moved around. Assistant coaches move around. What a double standard that would be for me if I don't support the players and their career aspirations like I support coaches and like I did in my career. So I root for them and I try to help.
What that will do is that will reduce the amount of transfers that he has. If you walk in knowing that he's going to support you in your quest, also, it's one of those things where if you come to me and say, I want to leave, I'm not going to spend any time trying to convince you. If you don't want to be here, you don't want to be here. But it's a case-by-case basis. So having that kind of attitude is going to mean that players are going to want to stay for him and not leave.
Yeah, I hope that they go to him first, and which you would think they would do before making any final decision.
I think that just is who Kenny Dillingham is. I think he's pretty authentic and a genuine, real guy. And before everybody hopped on the hype train here these last few weeks, I remember making the comment a few times when we talk in our little pods about how much I enjoyed listening to his press conferences and just really enjoyed hearing what he has to say. And I'm glad that a lot of other people are now kind of catching on to what he's got going on down there in Tempe, and also seeing what a cool guy and nice coach that he appears to be, in not just the on-the-field stuff, but also the off-the-field stuff. So I think that's great for them and great for him, and I'm glad that they're getting a lot of attention here these last few days because they went out and they earned that attention. So, yeah, I think that'll help the perception of the program. I think that'll help their communication, and also will probably prevent some guys from ever even entering the portal because they've got a coach who treats them from that approach as opposed to just the transactional approach that you're getting in a lot of other places.
I understand if a coach says, okay, you're leaving, goodbye. Doesn't have to be rude about it. Some I'm sure are. Some probably would like to know why. I've seen a couple of players that have entered the portal and come right back. That have changed their minds. And maybe that's because of how the coach maybe reacts to them entering the portal, or maybe the reaction once they're in the portal that their phone's not ringing or text messages are blowing up.
Oh, would you like an interesting note on the UNC coaching search?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is from Adam Schefter. Had talks between Bill Belichick and North Carolina broken down. And I promise you that neither of you in a million years, if I gave you a hint as who this was, would guess who the coach would have been.
Had it not been Belichick?
Yes.
Urban Meyer.
No. I mean, I'll tell you. Browns passing game specialist and tight ends coach Tommy Rees was considered the favorite to land the job per league sources. Rees interviewed for the North Carolina head coaching job twice and had Nick Saban as an advocate.
Was he the one? Oh, yeah, because he went to Alabama as one of those try to help give Alabama's offense a spark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would never have guessed that.
Yeah, well, I think North Carolina fans now understanding what their options are very excited, even more excited about the Belichick hire. I think, Tommy Rees will get his time and have some jobs like that. But, yeah, I think given the choice between Tommy Rees or just trying this Bill Belichick experiment, why the hell not? Like, you're North Carolina, you're not Alabama football, so I think there's some history there to work with, but there's also not this need to stick to the status quo by any means, and this is definitely not sticking to the status quo, is going and getting this legendary NFL head coach with really no connections whatsoever to your university, although I think his father was like an assistant there in the 50s is something that I saw, so there is a loose connection there that dates back decades, but is nothing modern in any way. So, yeah, a guy with other than that, no connections, that's a big risk, big gamble, but I mean, we're talking more about UNC football than we'll be otherwise already, and I'm sure we'll talk way more about them in the months to come than we would have otherwise as well, especially if it was Tommy Rees or Mac Brown back there. So they're getting good PR right now and a lot of attention. We'll see what he can do with it, because that's going to be a fascinating experiment to watch. And I'm very curious of what sorority his girlfriend rushes.
Yeah. By the way,
he could just walk from the football offices to the dorms and go take her out on a date.
Tweet of the day on Bill Belichick goes to Nicole Auerbach from NBC Sports. 12 months from now, Bill Belichick could be covered in mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? There's a video of a player who recovered a fumble on a punt return or something, and he was so excited. It was a 41, probably a rookie, whatever, and he maybe undrafted. And he went over to the sideline to hand Belichick the ball because he was so excited. He thought he would want it. And Belichick was like, to the football, to the kid, like, equipment guy. By the way, Belichick's father was an assistant at North Carolina in the 50s.
That's what I just said, like 30
I thought you were talking
seconds
about
ago.
Tommy Rees or something like that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's what I was referring to. He has no connections
Craig has
to North
the ability
Carolina.
when you say something stupid to make you feel like you said something stupid.
Well, it was literally 2 minutes ago that I said.
I thought you were talking about Tommy Rees. Twatter.
You guys have said it more than I have, so that's good. I'm glad we're teamwork here.
The chat room has said it too. They enjoyed that.
I thought that was the website I was just on. No, that's Twitter.
Oh my God! You can't say that. You cannot say that. We can save this for tomorrow. We've got a lot of guests. I'm sure we'll have Sam Kahn for sure, among others. Mickey Spagnola. Not sure about Max Olson, but we'll figure that out. But one of the things we will still get into was, in fact, do you have the Brett McMurphy note that when the college football playoff standings were about to be released, there was one question. What?
I just think it'd be better to say for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be 4 days old. But
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, we're at, yeah.
Paul Catalina's top 5 is next.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs, and they've taken care of a lot over the years for me personally, and I think they can take care of you and get you in that car, truck, or SUV that you're looking for as well, and have you driving around these highways and byways during the holiday seasons with a smile on your face and the priceless feeling of knowing that you're in a quality vehicle as you're traveling around this holiday season. So their biggest pre-owned sale all year is going on right now. It's the pre-owned Green Tag Savings event at Richard Carr. They have too many used cars and trucks on the lot right now, so every one of them are green tag price with big savings. Save your green at their expense. So if you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle right now, again, the pre-owned green tag savings event at Richard Carr. Too many cars and trucks on the lot. Go take advantage of the green tags. But if you're also looking to drive new, they've got the GMCs, Buicks, Cadillacs, and big end-of-year savings going on as well with the new models at the Richard Carr Holiday Savings event. All 2024 cars and trucks priced to sell right now. So new, pre-owned, doesn't matter. They're trying to get these cars off the lot. And if you want to go take advantage, then they've got the offers for you right now. It's the most wonderful time of the year to save on a new car or truck with big end-of-year savings going on now at Richard Carr. Check out the pre-owned Green Tag Savings event or the thousands off on new vehicles as well off Highway 6 in the Imperial exit.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Oh, man, this is the best.
Yeah, too bad we have to go to work tomorrow.
What? Why?
You know, Monday.
Where's my report? You millennials are all the same.
You okay, Dexter?
What happened?
You need Sunday scaries.
Screw you, Monday! Woo!
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
There are hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's Home Sleep Test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Top 5. I'm Paul Catalina, and this is Paul Catalina's Top 5. If you don't know that, welcome aboard. If you do know that, welcome back. Transfer Fits Volume 5. We've been diving into this since the portal right before it opened and since it opened officially this week. Of course, we're brought to you by Texas Beef House. Go to bitonbeef.com. Use our promo code 365sports. Number 5, Luke Kromenhoek, who surprisingly entered the portal from FSU, and I guess it's kind of surprising. 2-10 a year ago. They are pursuing a transfer quarterback because they need one to bridge the gap. Was a true freshman. Started a few games this year. Numbers paltry, but that was FSU season. He's got a lot of talent, though. Dual threat quarterback and can really wing the ball around the yard when he gets going. I think he's a great fit for Fran Brown in Syracuse in that offense. He's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. They can really build a program around him. It looks like they've got some good things going up there with the Qs. If he's not going to go there to be at FSU, then move on to Syracuse and see how you can do in a program that's up and coming. And there was a rumor that NIL had something to do with this. That was not true, according to his father. So want to clear that up for anybody who's watching and wondering about Luke Kromenhoek and why he's leaving the Noles. Number 4, wide receiver tight end Deuce Robinson from USC. I think he should go to Texas A&M. 1, I think he's a great fit in Colin Klein's offense. 2, he is a two-sport star. He plays baseball. Well, if I wanted to go to a place where both things are good to great, Texas A&M fits that bill. Plus, the NIL collective for baseball is as engaged as any baseball collective in the country. They're paying a lot of money for baseball players, maybe more than almost anyone, to get that College World Series. So if I'm Deuce Robinson, who was a 5-star prospect just a couple of years ago, had a decent year for a tight end like in this USC offense, hasn't reached his full potential yet, I would go to Texas A&M. Number 3, Malik Murphy from Duke. Duke today signed Darian Mensah from Tulane, who just won the AAC. Malik Murphy jumped in the portal. He needs somewhere to go. Miami is going to be without Cam Ward. I think Malik Murphy fits Shannon Dawson's offense pretty well. He's a developing passer. He can move. He can certainly run. He can make things happen with his legs. He's good. He was a captain on Duke last year. Really surprised me that he did jump in the portal after a 9-3 year, but looks like he might be cashing in. Another former big-time recruit. I think he'd be a really great fit at Miami for Mario Cristobal, because if Miami's not careful, as well as they've recruited, if they don't get the quarterback and everything else right, they're right back where they started, and they could be this year's cautionary tale of live by the portal, die by the portal. Number 2, wide receiver Reggie Virgil from Miami, Ohio. This is a big dude, lots of range, hasn't even, become the best version of Reggie Virgil yet. A lot of teams are making offers. I think he should go to Colorado. They're going to get cleaned out at wide receiver. Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, some dude named Travis Hunter. Never heard of him, but, maybe he might be a factor to refill. And LeJonte Wester all could be moving on to the next level next year from Colorado, and they're going to have to replace some. I promise you that Deion Sanders will attract a good transfer quarterback. They've got Juju Lewis already committed there, a 5-star commit. Things are looking up at Colorado. If I'm Reggie Virgil, I might want to go there and get me some of that sweet, sweet Buffalo action that they've got going there in Boulder. Number 1. His name's on there twice, but don't worry about that. Defensive back Julian Humphrey. He's not Julian Humphrey, but I'm just that excited about him, I guess, from Georgia. I think he should go to LSU. He is a guy who started 10 games this year. Garrett, how would you grade the LSU secondary on a scale of 1 to 1?
-0.
Yeah. Not happy about it. Garrett was not happy about the secondary. This is a guy who's not potentially a superstar, but a very serviceable player who started for a good defense 10 games this year, knows the SEC, is an SEC player, and could really help them be a veteran presence in the secondary while they try to rebuild that back up. That's going to do it for this edition of the Top 5, and we're out the door right after this.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. And thank you to our sponsors who make this happen every day. Thanks to YouTube. We have the channel, 365 Sports. And all of you who are a part of it today, either on YouTube or Twitter, at 365 Sports YT or Sikkim 365 app. For Emery Winter, also Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, and Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, for being a part of the show every single day. I'm David Smoak. We appreciate your time. 10:30 tonight on the local CW at 365 Sports tonight. This is 365 Sports, and have a great night.